evening. Welcome to the May 14th, 2024 meeting of the Oshkosh Common Council. City Clerk, if you could please take the roll.
Bulow?
Here.
Stevenson?
Here.
Nichols?
Here.
Larson?
Here.
Esslinger?
Here.
Flom?
Here.
Mughawar?
Here.
7 present.
Leading us in the invocation this evening will be Deputy Mayor Bulow.
Thank you. We ask for guidance tonight as we begin this meeting. May all those who participate in our discussions and our decisions reflect the values that we cherish in this great city.
Next, we have two students here from Val Phillips Middle School to help lead us in the pledge. Ladies, if you'd like to come on up, I'll join you.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, this evening we have students, as I mentioned, students from Val Phillips Middle School. We have Amara Jones and we have Lisa Peterson here. Ladies, I'll give you the mic if you want to let us know which one you are. And then maybe what grade you're at Val Phillips and if you've got a favorite class or a favorite subject. Go right ahead.
Hi, I'm Amara Jones, and I'm in 8th grade, and my favorite subject is social studies, and Mr. Van Thiel is my teacher.
My name is Lisa Peterson. I'm in 8th grade. My favorite subject is literacy, and my favorite teacher is Miss Bagley, my math teacher, because she's a very good person to be around and makes school feel fun.
That's awesome. Thank you very much. Got your picture? You got him? All right, we're good. Thank you very much, ladies. See, I told you about 6:04, you'd be out of here. Next up, we have staff introduction. Mr. Robbie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Back before you again with another staff introduction this week. Good evening, Mayor and members of the Common Council. It's my pleasure tonight to introduce you to the newly promoted Public Works Field Operations Manager, Ryan Lemke. Ryan came to the city of Oshkosh in 2016 with over 10 years of municipal experience with the city of Appleton. Ryan started with Oshkosh as the Assistant Distribution Manager in Water Distribution, and in 2020 was promoted to the Water Distribution Manager. Most recently, Ryan has been serving as the Interim Field Operations Manager since December. Personally, Ryan's married with 2 boys and currently lives in Hortonville. When not at work, he enjoys watching his oldest son play soccer and coaching his youngest son's travel baseball team. When not at a sports facility or watching the boys, he enjoys woodworking, restoring classic vehicles with his dad, and hunting. Ryan says he's very excited to take on this new challenge and start his new chapter in his career with the city of Oshkosh. So with that, Ryan, if you have anything you'd like to add?
Sure. That about sums it up. Just want to say thank you for the opportunity. I'm looking forward to future challenges and the new goals in the future ahead. So thank you again. I appreciate it.
Congratulations on the new role. This evening we have a couple of proclamations. 2 are in person, 2 we issued electronically. First up, University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh women's gymnastics team. They had a heck of a run this last season, and we're celebrating them this evening. So I'm going to read it, and then if you guys want to come up, actually, you know what? Let's come on up right now. Let's do this. This is going to be the biggest group I think we've done up front. So let's see if it fits in the camera shot. We may have to do 2 rows. Or 3.
And we cleared up some. I guess so. Good job. Yeah.
Tall ones in the back.
You're all in the camera shot. You're good right there if you want. All right. Camera's over there, by the way. If you want to smile that way. All right. The proclamation this evening. So whereas on March 23rd, 2024, the UW Oshkosh gymnastics team posted a Division III record score of 194.975 points and recorded 4 more program records as the team won the National Collegiate Gymnastics Association Championship for the 3rd year in a row, earning the program's 7th overall championship and its 6th in the NCGA and its 3rd consecutive NCGA title. And whereas UWO student athletes collected 10 All-American honors over the course of this national championship meet, with 2 on the vault, 1 on the uneven bars, 3 on the balance beam, 3 on floor exercise, and 1 on the all-around. 3 of the nods were first place awards. And whereas this season also marked the 4th consecutive UWO gymnastics season ending in a Wisconsin Intercollegiate Athletic Conference Championship. And whereas UWO gymnasts also continued to excel in the classroom and earn academic honors, as most recently 23 student athletes qualified for the 2022-2023 WEAC Scholastic Honor Roll by achieving a 3.0 grade point average or better. And whereas all of these accomplishments bring pride not only to the University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh, but the entire Oshkosh community. Therefore, I, Matt Mugrower, Mayor of the City of Oshkosh, in recognition of their extraordinary athletic and academic performances, congratulate the University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh women's gymnastics team on their three-peat NCGA championship and the individual outstanding achievements at the championship meet. And on behalf of a grateful City Council and the citizens of Oshkosh, I extend our highest commendation to the team and call upon all citizens to help recognize and celebrate their many contributions. Congratulations, coach and team, on a heck of a run.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do want to say thank you for the support the community always shows us, and how proud we are to be able to wear the name Oshkosh on the front of our shirts when we go across country and compete for titles like that. All of these ladies come from all over the country to come to this great city because they believe in what we have here, and we couldn't do it without the support of our chancellor and our athletic director. So thank you for all the support you guys show us, and we'll continue to wear that name Oshkosh with pride.
Well, I hope to try to be doing this again next year. That'd be really nice, ladies. Heck of a season, and good luck next season. Thank you.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, Public Works has got a tough act to follow.
I don't know if I can follow that.
The second one we're presenting this evening is for National Public Works Week, which is May the 19th through May the 25th. We'll read this one as well, and then Public Works Director Robbie's here to accept. Whereas public works professionals focus on infrastructure, facilities, and services that are of vital importance to the sustainable and resilient communities, and to the public health, high quality of life, and well-being of the people of the City of Oshkosh. And whereas these infrastructures, facilities, and services could not be provided without the dedicated efforts of public works professionals, who are engineers, managers, and employees at all levels of government and the private sector, who are responsible for rebuilding, improving, and protecting our nation's transportation, water supply, water treatment, and solid waste systems, public buildings, and other structures and facilities essential for our citizens. And whereas it is in the public's best interest for citizens, civic leaders, and children in the City of Oshkosh to gain knowledge of and maintain ongoing interest in and the understanding of importance of public works and public works programs in their respective communities. Whereas the year 2024 marks the 64th annual National Public Works Week, sponsored by the American Public Works Association and Canadian Public Works Association. Now therefore, I, Matt Mugrauer, Mayor of the City of Oshkosh, do hereby designate the week of May 19th to the 25th of 2024 as National Public Works Week in the City of Oshkosh, and urge all citizens to join with representatives of the American Public Works Association and government agencies in activities, events, and ceremonies designed to pay tribute to our public works professionals, engineers, managers, and employees at all levels, and to recognize the substantial contributions they make to protecting our national health, safety, and advancing the quality of life for all. Public Works Director Robbie.
Thank you, Mayor Mugrauer. The work of our public works professionals impacts every one of us every single day. When people think of public works, they often think of streets and sidewalks. But public works is so much more than that. It's water treatment, water distribution, wastewater collection and treatment, natural gas distribution, electric distribution, telecommunications, recycling, garbage collection, and so many more things that we take for granted on a day-to-day basis. The staff here at the City of Oshkosh is made up of professionals who are ready for any challenge, and they work tirelessly to improve our infrastructure and our quality of life. I'm honored to stand here on behalf of the Department of Public Works and all City of Oshkosh Public Works staff and receive this proclamation from you. Thank you.
Oh, you can clap now. Seems like the right time. Seems like the right time. Give you a little prompt there. Yeah. I was going to wait till you hand me a sign.
We did also issue 2 other ones electronically. Arbor Day, actually myself and Deputy Mayor Bulow got to participate in 2 Arbor Day events. And then Dr. Ringwala, it's actually Dr. Ringwala Day for the Oshkosh North High School Hall of Fame inductee, which occurred last week, and City Manager Roloff was able to attend. Next up, presentations. This is by Community Development Director Nyforth, as well as Planning Services Manager Mr. Lyons on the housing plan implementation.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, everybody. I apologize in advance. I have a little case of bronchitis, so Mark is going to do a lot of talking today, and I apologize if I'm coughing, but we really want to, show you what we've been working on since this plan was adopted in 2022. It's been a great resource for us, and really the timing couldn't have been more perfect because we are seeing more and more of need for housing and how can we encourage more housing in our community. So we have a lot of great information that we want to share with you today. And in the past, we've had this similar workshop with counselors before, and really it's to get some guidance from counselors on what we should be focusing on in the next year or two, so we can set our programming for our staff for the year and our CIP requests and budget requests that'll be coming up later this year. But we are really looking forward to sharing some of the items that we have implemented already, and then some of our ideas of some really beneficial, impactful projects that we think, if we could implement, will have a great impact on our community. Okay, well, you're going to control it? Okay.
Thank you for council giving us the opportunity tonight to kind of talk about some of the issues and challenges we face in housing, but also some of the accomplishments we've already achieved. Just real quick, short agenda of what we're going to be talking about tonight. Just one thing, as we move through this, there's a lot of slides, so if you do have a question, feel free to jump in and ask, so we're on what the subject is you want to talk about. So first, we want to start off a little bit by talking about kind of housing by the numbers. What are some of the housing statistics that we're currently seeing in the city of Oshkosh? So the first thing we have here is some of the sales data from 2023. Average home price did rise a little bit in 2023 with a sale price of approximately $218,000, a little under 750 sales. One thing I do want to draw your attention to is really this highlights how old of a housing stock we have in the city. The average age of homes being sold in the city is almost 75 years old with an average age of about 1950. So we do have a very old housing stock throughout a lot of our community. The oldest home that we had on record sold last year was from 1853. So again, really highlights kind of how old of a housing stock we have in a lot of areas of our community. A couple other numbers for you. Medium home price for Oshkosh for last year was about $190,000. average, about 250, and obviously the average did get pulled up a little bit. We had one very expensive house, about 1.8 million, sell in the city. That brought that average up, which is why we wanted to provide you the medium price as well. Took a little bit of a look over the last several years of our single-family homes and what has been constructed in the city. Over the last couple of years, we had a couple of unique projects that have gone in the city with Tiny Home Village, Evergreen Pocket Neighborhood. But really, the contrast here is to see that new single-family kind of traditional home starts are slowing in Oshkosh. So we are seeing less and less new single-family homes constructed here in the city. Taking a little bit look at the multifamily within the city, we wanted to provide you a little bit of overview of the multifamily projects that have been approved by council since 2020. We broke these into 3 categories: those that have been constructed, which total about 180 units in the city; those that are under construction, which currently we have about 350 units under construction in various phases. For example, the WIT, some of their buildings are open, some are still under construction. Miles Kimball hopefully comes on later this year, similar with Ripple Avenue Estates. And then finally, projects that have been approved by council, but for a variety of reasons have not moved forward. Those Morgan Crossing, Mill on Main, Boatworks, Sawyer Creek Crossing, and then obviously the future phases of Lake Buenmore Drive. Those total just under 1,100 units. There's a lot of units that have been approved. Construction has not began on those projects. So there's potential there that we could have a lot of units added, but we also know for a variety of reasons some of these may never move forward. Unfortunately, that is part of the development processes. Some things go through, get approved, but then for, like I said, reasons do not get constructed. 2 other projects that many of you may be aware of that have had preliminary discussions with maybe staff or Plan Commission are the Commonwealth project on Jefferson Street. We'll actually highlight that a little bit later in the presentation. And then we've had a conceptual discussion for an apartment complex on Bowen and Murdoch. That is kind of in the concept phases that may move forward. We do want to highlight, we always have that housing continuum we're looking at, knowing that there are housing needs throughout the community from that executive level, market rate home through workforce housing, affordable housing, transitional housing, and homelessness. So we're always looking at housing options throughout that spectrum and how they need to be added to the city to meet all the needs and demands of our community.
And this, sorry, Mark, can you just go back to that slide? It really demonstrates that people have different types of needs for housing, different types of housing at different times of their lives. And from a city standpoint, we want to make sure that we have all of the different types of housing that people may need in our community available for them. And right now we don't. So that's really the reason why we are doing this housing study, is to fill that, those gaps in the continuum of housing.
Talk a little bit about some of the couple things that have already been implemented since that housing study was adopted. The first thing we did is went through and did a number of code updates to make it easier to provide housing in the city. We reduced parking requirements for multifamily, reduced minimum lot sizes to make it so it'd be easier to do housing. We made duplexes and ADUs allowed throughout the city in many more areas, trying to encourage more options for housing in the city. We also went through and evaluated our housing programs to make sure our programs were being effective. Ones that were not effective, were not being utilized, were removed. Some of the caps increased because we know construction costs and housing costs are going up and people needed a little bit more money to achieve some of those projects. We began the infill lot design book that began earlier this year with the Office of Jonathan Tate. They're helping provide construction level plans of housings that meet our character of our neighborhood, but at a workforce affordable level. Making sure those plans can be provided to our community if people are interested in building and not having to go out to the private market to get plans. The goal is for that to be completed by about August, so those plans then become available to the community. One note with that, we are hoping to actually utilize those plans in some of our own upcoming housing projects. And then again, we're starting to try to collaborate with other community partners. We know housing is a community effort. We need some partners. We need help as we evaluate housing. So we've started to build housing relationships further with Habitat for Humanity, Go EDC, the Chamber, the Community Foundation. We have kind of a working group of those partners always talking about housing and what are things we can do in the community.
Mark, can you just pause for there? We want the presentation, if there's any back and forth questions you may have. This is kind of some that, we talked through some of the items that we've implemented this past year, but are there any questions or anything that you have so far on any of the previous slides?
So I missed the slide back quite a bit, but marked decrease in number of single-family homes recently. Lack of availability, lack of desire for them. What do you know what drew that?
I think it's a combination. High cost to construct, high, cost for folks to borrow money to get that mortgage. And I think that, we have the land here. We have developers that have ability to, have additional lots created. But we're also hearing just the cost to install all the infrastructure needed. And then that's just underneath. And then you have on top. So that's really, the feasibility of, the price point of what it needs to be. Unfortunately, it's not competitive in Oshkosh.
And just one more question, sorry. I think on the last slide, you talked about how you reduced the requirement for parking and you reduced lot size. Where did, I guess, our new standards come from? Are there model examples from other cities, or did we do that ourselves in Oshkosh?
So we did some research on kind of trends throughout Wisconsin and the country, especially with like ADUs. Some of ours, we took more aggressive approaches in a lot of communities. Our ability to do accessory dwelling units is much easier than a lot of peer communities in our area. We tried to push that envelope forward a little further, trying to make it easier. Same thing with duplexes. We found that some communities made it very easy for duplexes to be added for their communities. Some made it very difficult. So we tried to push the envelope forward in making housing easier and more accessible. The lot size reduction, we are one of the first, at least locally here in our area, to remove that. Many communities still have minimum lot sizes. We also removed the minimum dwelling size requirement, which we're one of the first in the area to do that. So we tried to take a look at what was out there and then tried to figure out what's best for our community and how do we push it forward.
Sure, thanks.
Just a quick question to follow up with that. When looking at the construction numbers from 2022 to 2023, did you run an analysis of other municipalities in the area and how they did? Are we behind? Is this currently in line with what we're seeing in the Fox Valley, or are we just that uncompetitive?
We did not specifically do that, but I would probably, if I had to guess, say we're probably maybe a little bit behind compared to others. But that's certainly something we can follow up with more specific numbers for you.
Sure, thank you.
Yeah. So as we move forward, if you have any questions as we're going through the slides, please feel free just to interrupt us.
This was included in your folder as well. This is a matrix that we have out on the city website that talks about a lot of our housing programs. The city operates a significant amount of housing programs throughout the city. These are derived from two funding sources primarily, those being our Community Development Block Grant, or CBG dollars. Those are programs that are primarily targeted at low-income individuals, affordable housing. And then our Healthy Neighborhoods Initiative funding, those are those funds that are created as part of the affordable housing extension through the tax increment district law that the state has. Those are more of workforce housing initiatives. Those programs, and we're going to talk a little bit, give you some examples of some of these, but this resource is out there, talks in great detail about a lot of the programs that we operate. We wanted to specifically target a couple to kind of talk to you with tonight and show you many of these H&I programs have been going on since 2014, 2015, and want to show you some examples of the successes we have had in the community. Here's a property on Eveline Street that in 2017 came to the city for a loan for siding, windows, air conditioning. The assessed value of the property increased after those projects were completed. The property sold in 2021 at a decreased value, which led to about an increased property tax base of just the city's portion of about $1,200. These programs are paid quarterly by the applicant or at the time of sales. For example, this property, when it sold in 2021, the entire loan was paid back. So we got our money back, plus now we've increased the value of properties within our city by loaning this money out at a zero interest loan to the homeowner. Second example we have for you is on East Irving Street. They received in 2016 a $30,000 loan for a kitchen and bathroom remodels. They had increased property values after the completion of those projects. Again, it was listed for sale in 2019 and sold at an increased values. We got that entire $30,000 back that we loaned them. and we have increased value of the property as a result of that project. So we've helped this homeowner increase their value of their home, and they were able to then reap that benefit when they sold it.
And that's something that, we're in this for the long haul. We're not looking to see a quick return on investment the next year. And, you saw the average age. The average age overall of our houses in the city is 1952, was when they were built. So it's just, 2 years off of, what the average one that you saw earlier. So we know these are older homes, but some of them are very well built. And they're in great established neighborhoods and great areas of our city by a lot of our amenities. So we want to do what we can to support rehab or different initiatives to help people, give them the tools to, fix up or remodel or, do maintenance if they need to take care of that home, because it only helps everybody long-term in the community.
Yeah, and as we're going to talk about in a couple of slides here, given that older housing stock, the interest in these programs on a yearly basis just goes up and up and up. So we're seeing a huge amount of interest in those programs we operate.
And I might be jumping ahead to that slide that you're referencing, but you said these programs were started in 2014. Has the budget for those programs increased since 2014?
It has changed from the early years of it. We actually started with a few programs and even a couple that we no longer operate. And through the 20-teens, it kind of evolved. The programs since 2020 have been very similar. We did, after that housing study, eliminate some that weren't being utilized, and we increased some of the ranges of prices for the programs. But funding annually from about 2020 till now has been in a similar fashion.
And do we run out of money in each program every year? We're going to get there.
We're going to get
there. All right.
And I have a question about lead service line replacement. Can you possibly point to an example of a resident or a household using CDBG loans for lead service line replacement? I know that that's an option.
Yep.
I have constituents reach out about me about that program and pointing them in the right direction. Given that the state no longer has a lead service line replacement program grant, I just want to know, how often do we see residents utilizing these CDBG block grants to do lead service line replacements?
So it's kind of a two-part answer. So first, I think it was the last meeting, or the meeting before, you approved that policy, where we do have that language in there. If there is a very low-income individual that is required, that does have a lead pipe, we do have funding for them in a grant format. So there is that. But if it's something that is part of a project that they're doing a rehab, and when we look at, we should back up, when we are looking at these rehab projects, sometimes we take, especially with the community development block grant, they want you to take a step back and say, okay, the roof really needs it, but you know what? In 5 years, those windows are going to need it too. And we try to work with the owner to see what they can afford, and try to see if we could include additional funds onto the loan, where they could potentially, look at multiple aspects of their home. But if there is a lead pipe or even lead paint, we do address it as part of that, because that is definitely a concern for CDBG, for the federal government.
Okay.
Thank you.
As Kelly mentioned, previously we did some under our owner-occupied rehab loans through block grant. That was an eligible expense through those. Obviously, this coming year with the new policy, the new program, there's a renewed effort for those dollars for lead pipe replacement.
Okay. Thanks.
Infill lots, this is another one of our programs. The Redevelopment Authority over the years has purchased a number of homes that were in distress or vacant properties, demoed, cleaned those sites, and those infill lots are then available for sale back to the community to be built on. Wanted to highlight one example here at 1014 Wisconsin Street. It is a new single-family owner-occupied home that's being constructed through that RDA lot and the new homes in our neighborhood program. One unique little factor with this one is they are actually setting up the ADU and the detached garage right at the time of construction. We know one of the barriers that can exist when it comes to ADUs is it's harder to convert than it is to construct new. So we're trying to encourage homeowners and builders when they build to consider at least getting the property ready for an ADU in the future. This one's great because they're going full bore doing it right away.
And then, Mark, as part of our design book, we're going to have an ADU plan in that also.
Correct. Yep. As part of that design book, one of them will include a detached garage with an ADU in it. So we're able to provide that to the community as well. As Councilmember Nichols had asked, starting in about 2022, 2020, 2021, the city started what we call our Lunch and Learn program, where we go out, we present on our housing programs. Almost got too good at it, because by 2022, for the first year, we ran out of money in our allocated budgeted funds for H&I. That increased even further in demand and interest by 2023, where all those budgeted funds were allocated by July, and it's increased even again this year, where by April, all those funds for home rehab, infill homes, historic rehab were accounted for. Now, we use the word allocated here because some of those projects may come in under cost when the actual project is finished. And then we use that money to loan out more later in the year. So we're kind of at that point now where we have to see as some of these projects get constructed and completed, if we have additional funds kind of from the leftover funds that we can then do more. But again, that demand is just going up every year on those. One of the reasons we are running out quicker, as we mentioned earlier, we did evaluate our programs. For example, the owner-occupied used to have a $30,000 limit on that. Because of the construction cost, $30,000 wasn't covering a lot of the stuff that people needed done in their homes, so we upped that to $50,000. That does mean, however, we allocate the money obviously quicker with that higher number.
Do we have the data that shows kind of what the ROI is to the city for doing these interest-free loans?
So that is what we were starting to try to show here.
Yeah.
Giving some examples on what that return is. It's set up in design, especially like the new home or the owner occupied, to be that revolving loan fund where we get quarterly payments back to loan it back out in the future, while getting that return and increased property value, increased tax generation. We have not done it on the entirety of the loan program, but that is something we could work on.
I think that'd be helpful, especially because I imagine if we just got to the slide that we're running out of money every year, I imagine there'll be a request for more money. But if we can show that there's an actual ROI over a number of years, that'll be helpful to justify that expense.
No, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's something we're working.
And if I can chime in real quick, I like the idea of an ROI, but I also don't want to focus on it too much. I mean, the money that we're getting here is from an affordable TIF extension. I mean, by all intents and purposes, it's from that TIF. It's not from our general tax levy. I think it should be going towards making affordable housing regardless of if it's generating us money or not. Obviously, it'd be good to have a return on investment, but I would say it's not my primary concern. But if you have the data, please throw it to us.
So we did want to talk briefly about kind of the future of the H&I funding. When the H&I fund was created, we had a couple of large TIFs that closed that created the seed money for the H&I programs to be established. Obviously, with some of the city's policy changes and switching to more of the micro project-based TIDs, those TID closure dollars that come into the program are less than kind of that initial seed money when the program began. Every year during the budget cycle, we go in and we do some analysis on how are we doing in terms of those loan payments coming back in. Right now, we're at about $60,000 a year in loan payments. Obviously, that should go up through time as more money is loaned out, but right now we're at about $60,000. We then also take a look at potential TID closures. For example, you can see there in 2026, we're anticipating about $130,000 coming into the H&I fund through the affordable housing extension. And then we kind of project that out. Many of the council members will recall last year during the budget cycle, we reduced staff admin that was paid out of H&I, reduced that at about half to really try to get down to the bare bones amount of admin that we can pay out of it to keep the programs running. At current funding levels, which is about $640,000 in programming annually, by about 2030, we will run out of money if we continue to operate the programs as we do today. So as we move forward, we'll have to start to do some additional analysis on what programs are effective, are there changes we need to make in programs, and are there alternative funding sources for some of those programs that we could look at outside of H&I. But right now we have about 6 years worth of funding at current funding levels. I know this is a slide many of you have seen before, but we do like to highlight it. In the housing study, it went over kind of our amount of units in various price points and the balance we have at those. This is something we look at as those projects we discussed earlier were being approved, and we have made progress on some of these, but obviously we still have a long way to go with our housing market and trying to provide units for the people that need them. We quickly wanted to kind of talk about that, the various types of projects, how they fit into that scale, as well as that continuum of housing. So just kind of highlight 3 projects that have fallen in those various price points that are bringing a need to our community. First, we have the T-Wall project here on South Main, more of an executive lot style of apartments, hitting some of those upper ranges of our rents. Hopefully, we'll break ground here this fall. Similarly, then we have more of a workforce project. This is the Boatworks property along the south side of the river that is targeted at those workforce apartments, kind of those mid-level market rate apartments, not high-end but not affordable or low-income housing either. And then we have the corridor project on Jefferson Street. We're hoping to hear any day now if they receive their tax credit application. Those are usually announced about this time of year, but that is a low-income tax credit project along Jefferson and Main Street in the city. I know that council gave some support for it last year. Like I said, we're hoping to hear any day about that. But there's just kind of 3 examples of a high-end executive project, workforce, and low income that we've been working towards. And then infill housing. So now we're trying to move a little bit out of the multifamily, the apartments, and look at infill housing. This is an example of some lots that the RDA has purchased over the year between 7th and 8th, between Oregon and Nebraska. Was an example of where we're trying to get infill lots out into the community. Our New Homes in Your Neighborhood program that we operate is designed to help with infill housing. We know the inherent cost of single lot infill housing is more expensive, can be more expensive for your laterals and some of those things. So the New Homes in Your Neighborhood program is designed to help offset some of those costs. So then moving, kind of shifting gears a little bit now, talking about kind of workforce and affordability. Everyone talks about affordable housing. So we wanted to kind of talk a little bit about what does that mean? What are the income tiers when people talk about housing? So it's broken down based on kind of percentage of median income. Winnebago County median income is about $95,000. Market rate is 120% or more of that. And then workforce is generally the middle income, the 80 to 120%. Low income or affordable, is about 80% annual median income. And then very low is at about 50%, and extremely low is 30%. That's kind of just the general standard of how those different categories are broken down. Looking a little bit more of how that translates into our MSA. Now, Oshkosh is lumped with NENA for MSA statistics. But what does that translate into for, that bottom end of workforce housing at 80% for family 4 in Oshkosh? That's about $72,000. For very low, example of 50%, that's about $45,000 for a family of 4. Now, 2024 data has now finally been released, so these will change a little bit, and we'll be updating our information as we are able to and get that updated to whatever the 2024 numbers are. This is the 2023 numbers.
Mark, if you don't mind, can you hang on a second? If anybody needs to have conversations, the room is kind of small, and if you need to have conversations, if you can go into the hallway just briefly to have those conversations. If you were up here speaking to us, I wouldn't allow people in the audience to be speaking when you are, so thank you. Go ahead, Mark.
Thank you. So now kind of changing gears a little bit to talk about workforce housing. That is one of the items that's been identified for the city to begin working on. And in 2024, that's a focus that we've been looking into is how do we provide more workforce housing in the city of Oshkosh. So again, going back to, what does workforce mean? It's that 80 to 120% of annual median income. In Oshkosh, that translates, and we kind of tried to show you some information on what does that mean if you were trying to buy a new home. 80% would give you a loan and down payment of a home valued at about $237,000 at the 80%, all the way up to about $356,000 for 120%. So that is kind of defined as the workforce range. Previously, we had discussed with council what are some of the options for the city beginning to get involved in workforce housing projects, and we discussed a number of different options. Those came from, the city buying land and installing infrastructure for a developer to reduce the developer's cost. Participating in cost sharing, for example, maybe paving the street of a subdivision to reduce the developer's cost, and we could plan for it within the CIP moving forward. Or buying vacant land suitable for residential and absorbing the holding costs of the land and then selling it back to developers in smaller chunks so they could develop it. One thing we heard during those prior discussions was council wanted to make sure, as we look to be involved in workforce housing, is that that housing savings was passed on to the homeowner, not necessarily the developer, making sure the homeowners reap that benefit if there was going to be city involvement. So from that point, the city staff began looking at, okay, what are things we could do? How can we help make sure that cost savings, if we do get involved, is passed on to the homeowners? Making sure that maybe the price point is controlled so that cost continues to be affordable. Making sure that public assistance directly affects the homeowner, and making sure it's transparent if we do get involved in any housing opportunities. And the potential of leveraging some of those other sources of funding to achieve workforce housing. You know, there's other dollars out there that could potentially be used, and how can we leverage those to provide workforce housing? So we do want to discuss with you two potential opportunities for workforce housing. Many of you are aware of them. They've been through council or other boards and commissions previously, but we wanted to give you an overview tonight of a couple of things that staff has been working on at the direction of council. So the first is the Washington School redevelopment site. The Oshkosh Area School District had done an RFP and received no proposals for redevelopment from the open market of that school. During and prior to that RFP process, there were a number of neighborhood meetings held that city staff attended. One of the overwhelming uses that was identified by that neighborhood is they wanted to see infill single-family residential. So after no requests were received by the school district, city staff started to evaluate, is there a potential here that the city could do some housing? A partnership became available with Habitat for Humanity to get involved in that project, with the goal of providing 18 to 19 shovel-ready infill housing lots on that site. So just an example of, here is that site. Here's potentially what removal of that school and a new subdivision could look like. Second option that we've been discussing with council is there's a parcel of ground on the northwest side of the city off of Farmington Avenue. A developer had previously looked at doing a small lot subdivision out there. For a number of reasons, it wasn't able to move forward. So that we began evaluating, okay, is this a project that the city could take over? And could we do workforce housing on that site? So the city has been negotiating after the direction of council on potential purchase price of that, with anticipation of bringing that to council and plan commission for the acquisition process here in late June, early July. So those are two great projects, but how do we actually get there? How could it work if we do these? So tonight what we want to talk really about is, what are some potential options that we can use to make this work, and what makes these potential workforce projects doable with city involvement. So the first is really, based on these two areas, we've identified a couple of unique opportunities for funding sources that we normally wouldn't have the ability to use. First one being block grants. For example, on block grant, Washington School, based on the area, we could use block grant to demo and remove the school, taking a huge burden of cost of potentially up to $500,000 out of the hard cost of that project that make it difficult to do. The Farmington area, there's a potential we can use block grant dollars for some public infrastructure. And then partnering with Habitat for Humanity to do the Washington School project helps lower that cost from the city side of it. So there's a bunch of funding sources out there we're evaluating to try to make these things work. Said the end goal is to get those shovel-ready lots that we could sell to builders but at a reduced cost. So we absorb part of that cost, and then those lot sales could potentially be used to start a revolving loan fund for hopefully replicating this to future projects in the city. The goal would be to create a process to ensure that that home is sold at a workforce price point and remains at a workforce price point. So we have been doing some analysis and working on exactly what those agreements would look like to make sure that affordability is passed on to the homeowner, and it's not either the builder that gets it or they couldn't quickly flip it for a profit, making sure that remains affordable.
But we also know that owning a home is an opportunity to obtain equity. So we want to make sure we're mindful of all those different factors. So we've actually been looking to see what Habitat for Humanity does through their program. So there's a lot of other organizations that are doing this throughout the country and the state. So we have a lot of great resources that we're excited to bring to you, hopefully in the next 4 months or so to consider.
When you mention shovel-ready projects, does that include brownfield sites?
So these two sites specifically, we're talking about shovel-ready. The lots within these subdivisions would immediately be available to be built on.
Right, but in terms of the future, I think we need to get a little bit more creative. Is there a possibility we could go into that? I know there are some federal resources and grant dollars that are available.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we do that all the time now.
Sure.
We don't do it as much for single-family residential. In this situation, Farmington is just a greenfield site, so in theory, we won't have any issues out there. This one was a school, and I think before that, there were houses there, so there might be some. We'll obviously do a phase 1, of course, and in the school itself, we'll have some remediation with the asbestos and everything. But yes, we are not afraid to go for grants from the federal or state government.
Thank you.
I think one thing we've really identified as we've really dug into this is the only way to make these work is identify those opportunities where there's funding sources to help make it work. Sure. Finally, and we talked on this a little bit earlier with return on investment, preliminary analysis and looking at how this could work is showing that we could recoup the city's direct costs. So if we use CAP dollars, things like that, to invest and get these done, given the generated tax value and the assessed value of these new homes being built into the city, would have a return of about 10 years in these subdivisions. That's it.
So really, looking forward for next year, our big goal are going to be these two projects with Washington and Farmington. Of course, we'll still support multifamily. We're still working with developers who want to build executive-style condos. We still have projects that come to us all the time. We'll still look for lots to buy for infill housing. But the workforce, single-family homes is really a need that we see. So we're excited to take these on and, see what we can accomplish in the next year. With that, is there any questions, comments?
I just want to thank you. I know I've spoken a few times now, but thank you for the presentation today. The revolving loan idea I really do like, so we can create a self-sustaining program, potentially could help with some of the liquidity issues we may see with H&I in the future. So I really like that idea, and hopefully you guys can get a developer on the hook for Farmington and Washington, and we can get started. So thank you.
Great, yeah, thank you.
If there's nothing else, thank you very much.
Excellent, thank you very much.
Before we move into public hearing and then public comments, I need to clarify two things. I've got three people. Ms. Shonda Anderson, you're registered to speak. Which one did you want to speak on, just so I know?
Yeah, the computer group jumped on me.
Got it. Ashley Hess, which one did you want to speak on, just so I can make sure I call you?
Just your general comments.
Okay, excellent. And then TJ Hobbs, I think it's on our, 040. We've got a couple under, is it under ARPA? Thank you, just wanted to make sure. So first up, we have public hearing. No action is anticipated on the public hearing this evening, but it is a public hearing and no action for voting. Ordinance 24-239, this is for adoption of amendment to Chapter 3, Housing of the City of Oshkosh, Comprehensive Plan 2040, and Plan Commission recommends approval of that. I have no one here registered to speak on that at all, but this will be on next council's agenda for approval as well, or for, Yep. Second time reading. Ordinance 24-239, adoption of amendment to Chapter 3, Housing of the City of Oshkosh, Comprehensive Plan 2040. And third and final time. Ordinance 24-239, public hearing on adoption of an amendment to Chapter 3, Housing of the City of Oshkosh, Comprehensive Plan 2040. Plan Commission recommends approval. Excellent. We'll move, consider the public hearing on that closed for this evening, and then, as I mentioned, it'll be on next meeting's agenda. So next up, we have citizen statements to council. First up, we have Nate Gustafson, and then it'll be followed by Ashley House. Welcome.
Thank you very much. So I'm State Representative Nate Gustafson. If we haven't met before, I actually represent the 55th Assembly District down in Madison. Due to recent redistricting that has happened, that now actually includes south and southwest parts of Oshkosh. So coming to introduce myself, say hello, and then also I've been hearing the grievances. I know you have too. Obviously the reassessments went out, and people are obviously confused about what's going on. So I just implore you to obviously get back to the constituents as fast as you can And I would also advise that as you move into your budget this year, we really take a real hard look of what our needs and wants are going into the next budget, because I think ultimately we're all feeling the squeeze. We feel the inflation. People are already at, the ends meet right now, and they're barely getting by. So I think ultimately we're going to have to be a lot more conscious of where our dollars are going and making sure it's serving our constituents best. So thank you again. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Ashley Hess, you're up. Welcome.
Good evening. Ashley Hesse, Oshkosh.
Sorry.
Really, number one, I'm glad to hear that there's this housing plan study coming on. It's, I would say, long overdue. I wasn't really paying attention to the agenda that closely, so it was a nice surprise to walk in on that and hear all that's going into it. Very exciting. And I think this sort of feeds into it. Some of what I do, I set up healthcare systems, I look for all kinds of data, I dig into things and where to site facilities all across the country for very specific populations and needs. So I decided to take that lens and look at Oshkosh recently. And one of the things that I like to do is think about what does this really mean? And seeing as where you're sitting, I wanted to share a little resource info. It's called the Area Deprivation Index. And it's a really great tool. It was developed by HRSA, our Health Resource Service Administration, one of our federal agencies that's designed and built to help ensure public health and well-being exist. It's a great index. It's been utilized many ways, but whether I look at state decile or national percentile rankings, it's a score of 1 to 10, and they're looking at block groups of disadvantaged areas, 1 being the least disadvantaged, 10 being the most disadvantaged, socioeconomically, and education, housing quality, employment, income. One of the things I focused on was education, because I think it's at the core of why some of the numbers look at. But no matter what you do, the city of Oshkosh in its entirety scores at the highest of these negative rankings for all of those factors. So education, I think there's been some folks here in the room, I know for sure, that are interested in this topic called literacy. And then we hear this with buzz, there's things that are going on in all kinds of ways. It's hit the news for whatever the reasons. But to me, that personally ties directly to one's ability to achieve long-term success throughout life. I focus on healthcare, so it directly relates to health outcomes and life expectancy. But with that in mind, I just wanted to just announce that there's going to be a public forum to talk more about literacy, dyslexia, math challenges for children and adults. And it will be coming up June 12th at Beckett's, 5:30 to 7. And it's sponsored by the Learning Collaborative, but it's going to have literacy experts, Dr. Sean Robinson and Dr. Bill Kitts, longtime experts. There to start a dialogue. It's going to be one of many sessions to inform about dyslexia, its impacts on children, what you can do about it in early grades, what it means for adults, and on and on. There's one of many things coming forward. It's one of those factors I know impacts our community, but I would encourage you all to look at the Area Deprivation Index. University of Wisconsin-Madison researchers called the Neighborhood Atlas. They've retooled that. They do great work with it, and it's a really good tool to help inform policies and things you're looking at from housing and education going forward. So, thanks for your ear.
Ashley, oh, sorry. Go ahead. One more time. What was that index called?
It's the Area Deprivation Index. It's from HRSA. It's been out there for 30, 40 years. It's really utilized as it's a great tool. But anyhow.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If there's no other citizens wishing to speak to council, we'll move on to consent.
Mayor, we have one.
Oh. I know you're registered for the other one, but if you could do name and address quick.
Of course. Name TJ Hobbs, address 520 High Avenue. I'm one of the directors of Oshkosh Pride Incorporated, just in full transparency, 501c3 org. Oh, go ahead.
Are you want to talk
Citizen statements, right?
You want to talk about the ARPA thing, though, or no?
No, this is regarding a resolution that council should be aware of. So it's like vaguely related to that. I'm just explaining who I am as transparency goes. I don't want anyone to be surprised. Of course, I'll advocate for my own org, but what I will tell you is SEPO deserves the funding more than anyone I've ever heard of as far as literacy in Oshkosh. But
only reason I'm asking if it's about the ARPA stuff, I'm going to hold you till the end. But if it's not, it's your time and you go right ahead.
I'm not going to be here at the end. I have to go get a friend. But I guess if I'm not allowed to speak on open statements, like,
It's an agenda item. Even though it's under a citizen council discussion, it's an agenda item. Discussion would happen underneath it. That's just the way our process has generally worked.
Oh, I understood differently speaking to the city manager's assistant today, but I guess all I want to say while I'm here before I go is to remind you guys that Resolution 20-498 was passed that directly affects DEI and their consideration in regards to ARPA funding. And I just was shocked when I learned today on a phone call with the city manager's assistant that I guess DEI was not given all 51 ARPA applications to review. They made 2 recommendations that I heard were not going to be considered because they weren't given all 51 to review, yet there was no plan for them to have all 51 be reviewed. So I hope I'm wrong, but it sounds like Resolution 20-498 is not necessarily being followed currently. Please follow up on that, as that's all I have time for. Thank you so much.
If there's no one else for consent agenda, do you want to speak for citizen statements for nothing on the agenda?
This is about the tax that's coming up and the tax that we have.
The which tax, sorry?
The wheel tax and the tax forms that we had sent out.
If you'd like to. Yeah, come on up, name and address, please.
Thank you.
If there's anyone else that would like to speak, if you could register in the hallway quick, otherwise if you want to line up behind the gentleman here.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity. I do appreciate it. My name is William Rothy. I live at 862 West 10th Avenue. I have lived in Oshkosh for almost 71 years now. And when I got that tax statement in the mail, I just lost it because we're having a hard time making it now. Through my whole life, that's why I clap for that guy. I've had dyslexia. I'm also borderline on autism too. So for me, it was very hard for me to get a good paying job. I've had a lot of medical issues, been hospitalized a lot, but besides that, I'm here to support the older people in this community that have been here living this long, that actually supported Oshkosh all those years. So I don't know if you guys have been on Nextdoor, whatever it's called. It's been a hot topic. So I said, I'm sure a lot of us are concerned about the notice of our property taxes. I also think we need to protest this. The city needs to get votes on important things like this. They seem to always have discussions during work hours, and they don't put out enough notifications about the important things that will reflect us. I hear a few say, sorry, dyslexia again. I hear a few say that our taxes will not go up, but I know I've lived here in Oshkosh for 71 years. Every time these tax things have come up, notifications, our taxes have gone up. Then our utilities went up. Then the burden us with the wheel tax. I wonder if the people that voted for the new school, I hate these stupid phones, sorry, realize that that would impose on our taxes that we're paying now. I've heard people say it was caused by COVID, or some say it's government. Well, if that's the case, the government needs to understand they work for all of us. All of us need to vote more intelligently and do our jobs and research these people, and not let what you see on the internet or the news, or looking who has the most signs on their lawns, or voting only their usual party. We are so disgusted about this that we are starting to purge our house so we now can move out of this town. So the most important thing I can tell for our country and to your local government and for you and your families is to vote wisely and not to worry about getting people in there because they've never been in that place before. Put people who are qualified and have strong leadership. Also remember, none of us are perfect, and you can find mud in every one of us. if you dig deep enough. Thank you.
Thank you. If there's no one else for citizen statements to council, we'll move on to consent agenda. I have no one registered to speak to any of the consent agenda items, so I'll take a motion and a second on consent.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, if you'll take the roll on consent agenda.
Bulow,
Aye.
Stevenson,
Aye.
Nichols,
Aye.
Larson,
Aye.
Esslinger,
Aye.
Flom,
Aye.
Muglebauer,
Aye.
carried 7.
We have a few pending ordinances here. Pending ordinance 24-264 approves zone change from institutional to 2-flat residential 10 for the property located at 1333 Eastman Street. Plan Commission recommends approval.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. If you'll take the roll on 24-264.
Bulow,
Aye.
Stevenson,
Aye.
Nichols,
Aye.
Larson,
Aye.
Esslinger,
Aye.
Flom, Muglebauer,
Aye.
carried 7.
Ordinance 24-265 approves zone change from suburban mixed-use district to suburban mixed-use district with a planned development overlay at 502 West Murdoch Avenue. Plan Commission recommends approval.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Take the roll on 24-265.
Bulow,
Aye.
Stevenson,
Aye.
Nichols,
Aye.
Larson,
Aye.
Esslinger,
Aye.
Flom,
Aye.
Muglebauer,
Aye.
carried 7.
We have a new ordinance, no anticipated action this evening. Ordinance 24-266, approve request to attach the city from the town of Algoma, rural to voluntary attachment. Once again, no action this evening. This will be on next meeting's agenda for a vote. Moving on to new resolutions. Resolution 24-267, budget amendment for the 2024 Fire Special Revenue Fund Funding Assistance Program to approve an increase in expenditures. If I have a motion in a second.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? If you'll take the roll on 24-267.
Bulow,
Aye.
Stevenson,
Aye.
Nichols,
Aye.
Larson,
Aye.
Esslinger,
Aye.
Flom,
Aye.
Muglebauer,
Aye.
carried 7.
Next up is new resolution, Resolution 24-268. This is approve operator license Whitcomb. Staff recommends denial. I do have a Kessie Whitcomb here to speak on this evening. Welcome. A reminder to council, until it's on the floor, we should limit our interactions until we do that. Floor is yours.
I'm not much of a public speaker, so I don't really know what to do here. Just a little bit of details. I did send in a letter explaining it a little bit. Been bartending for about 13 years. I was told that recent legal interactions have shown a pattern of disregard to the law. A lot of those charges were dropped because they were mischarged towards me, and they all got dropped. And I also like to say, after 13 years, if I had a disregard for the law, I would not be here trying to fight for doing it legally, and so on and so forth. So if you have any questions, feel free. I'm just a little nervous.
No worries. If I can get a motion and a second to put on the floor?
So moved.
Second.
So council discussion. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Ms. Whitcomb, for coming. I'm going to try not to be brutal, but I've managed a lot of bartenders. I know several of us here have been in the hospitality business, so I know it's tough sometimes. But you're asking us to go against the recommendation of the chief of police, so I just want some more clarification.
Yep.
Thank you very much for the letter that you sent us, of course. One of the things that you attested to in your letter is that you changed your process, or that you can assure us that you're not going to make the mistake in the underage drinking one again.
I did ID the women, sorry to interrupt.
Yep.
It was just the month, the year was correct, the month was wrong. It was just an oversight on my part. But the women that I did serve underage, I did ID.
Okay.
So I did make that effort.
I totally understand that. And do you know, did they come in as part of a underage program, or were they just there as customers?
No, they were through a sting program.
Through the state program, okay. And what have you changed since then in the way that you check the IDs?
I'm terrified of having it happen again, so I am a lot more cautious. Pretty much anybody under 40, I double check any some of my regulars I still ID, they get mad at me now. They're just like, really? I'm sorry.
Sure.
Want it on camera. I don't want to make a mistake again.
Gotcha. And I definitely don't want to go into the details. I know, like you said, one of the charges was dropped. That was a mischarge, you said?
Yes, it was my over-the-counter beta blocker for this sort of thing, the shaking and all that, so it helps with my anxiety, and it tested positive for a controlled substance when it was not. So all of those charges got dropped.
Gotcha. That is all the questions that I have. I just will say that I've been in bars and hospitalities for 10 years, and I know of a lot of great bartenders that have made a mistake and accidentally served somebody underage. I know, especially when it's busy, it's very hard sometimes. We're being asked here to override a direction from the chief of police, which is hard. But I just wanted to say on the record, I think what you did is understandable. I don't think it's unforgivable, and I appreciate you coming forward here to help explain it.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Councilmember Nichols.
Yeah, thank you for being here. I also appreciate your letter. I appreciate your statement to council. I guess I really just have one question. So when you served someone that was underage, I believe it was an ordinance violation, was there a penalty associated with that you've already paid?
I have not gotten around to paying for it yet.
Okay, but have you already, but I assume you will pay that?
Oh, yes.
And that will be unrelated to the license. That is completely a separate matter.
The license has been paid for. I got a letter saying that I can get reimbursed for the payment, but it has already been paid for.
Great, thank you.
Councilmember Larson.
So maybe somebody else can speak to this as well, and thank you for being here also. I really appreciate it. I don't know what the history is of us, and I don't know, maybe staff can help with this. If we oftentimes deny applications for liquor operating for bartender licenses if people serve one underage person, or if there are more infractions here that lead up to that. It sounds like from the letter you wrote that these things really were dropped, so we're only considering one serving of an operation, a sting operation type of thing. That's the wrong word for it, but one underage person was served. Is that typically how we don't renew a license? I don't know that. Maybe nobody knows that. Maybe
My understanding is if I had my license at the time, I would not receive any penalty. It's the second infraction, but I would have a 2-day penalty.
And that was,
Still
yeah.
get back 2 days after.
I don't know that for sure either. I understand that if you have it and you get more than a certain amount, it can be revoked while you have it. It was not clear with me in Chapter 125 is pretty clear. In city code, it's not abundantly clear how that translates to what happens if you're going up for renewal. So if everybody who serves one underage person doesn't get a renewal, then there's precedent for this. That's where my confusion is on this. And maybe Chief knows.
It's also not a renewal, it's a new license.
So she didn't have a license previously?
Yes.
Correct.
Great.
So if I can just, for council's benefit, kind of walk you through the process. Councilman Nichols, you sent me an email today, and I want to be able to share with everybody our processes. So essentially the role of the chief of police here in the city of Oshkosh is, I do play the administrative role in review of hundreds of licenses for the city, whether it be bartender's license, liquor licenses, taxi cabs, even pedal cabs. They come across in my office as the license application is sent to the city clerk. We do a background check on every one of these licenses. Literally hundreds of these licenses come through. If there's no issues found in the application, we sign off on it, I sign off on it, and we send it back to the city's clerk's office, and council has given the city clerk the authority to issue the licenses. We sometimes find that people omit something from their application. When we find that, we'll go back to the clerk's office and ask the clerk to have a conversation with the applicant and suggest that they correct their application, because there's criminal penalty or civil penalties associated with falsifying an application. So we do that. So it's an interaction back and forth. Then I review the corrected application and make a determination based on the totality of the circumstances of the application and whether or not to recommend the issuance of the license. If I recommend that the license is granted, I'll sign as the investigating authority, and then that I approve the background. The application is returned to the clerk's office, who issues the license. If I don't feel comfortable, based on the totality of this history, that I can't sign off on the application, I have to send a letter to the clerk's office defining the reason why I will not recommend the application. We often meet with the applicant to discuss the background and what we've found in the background. We'll provide various options for them based on the circumstances or what we can and cannot do to help them with their license. We also advise them that they have a right to have a hearing in front of council, which is what we're doing today, so that they can have their just cause and let council make a determination. In the application process, if I sign off on the application, I'm signing off saying as a city that I'm approving the application, that I'm approving the recommendation for the application. If I don't feel comfortable with it, that's why we're here today. We oftentimes have the applicant notified that there's issues with it and they don't want their criminal history talked about in an open court, or excuse me, in the open council meeting. This is where we talk about all the circumstances around things. We do have an applicant just recently that had a lot of issues during a taxi cab application and wanted a hearing. Well, we pulled that in the 11th hour because he didn't want us to talk about his driving history. So we do a lot of back and forth on these things. I am a believer in giving second chances. If an applicant's not specifically prohibited by law, generally due to felony convictions from holding a license, then I generally will, my standard, if you will, as I review these things, is I give them a year to actually do things well, and then we'll review the application again, and generally I'll sign off on those along the way. So that's kind of the background associated with how these things work, and I'm open to any questions you might have.
Chief, can you clarify that I understand the baseline standard and I appreciate it. Is there a felony at play here or not? That's where my confusion is. Is this just serving one underage, or are there felonies that go with this? And I don't know that any of us are clear on that necessarily.
There are other drug charges that were convictions for.
Okay.
That go along with this, that caused me to come to the decision that I made to not recommend the application.
If I may speak, I did write some of that in my letter as well. I had the prescription ibuprofen, which is holding illegal drugs with me, but I had a broken foot and I just finished bartending. One of my regulars, yes, as it may be against the law, it was just ibuprofen. And the other one was a drug paraphernalia. It wasn't any actual substance.
Sorry, Chief Smith, have we denied other bartending licenses with similar circumstances? So
we being you, or as council, or
we as a city? I meant we as a city. So just where someone and were they misdemeanors for kind of the issues that we have here?
The standard across the state is it's substantially related. Can you articulate whether it's a misdemeanor or a felony? Do you believe it's substantially related to the whatever the application is for?
Sure.
Just like the taxi cab license, there's a reason why that wasn't issued. Mm-hmm. He doesn't drive well, and so that wasn't issued. They're not felonies. Some of them are misdemeanors. Some of them are traffic infractions. But it's really the totality of the circumstances.
So if someone had a DUI, for example, 3 months ago, we wouldn't issue them a bartender's license?
That we would issue them a bartender's license. That's one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there a rubric that exists, I guess, where we evaluate each applicant? I know totality of the circumstances I understand, but do we have objective criteria that we look for that is written down somewhere that people can look at when they're filling out their application?
We have so many different circumstances,
Sure.
and so many criminal codes and ordinances. A rubric there's no way to create something like that.
Okay.
It's really looking at each applicant as it comes through. And for my staff and for me, when we get into renewal, which is coming up now,
yeah,
we're going to have a lot of work just looking at each and every one of these. And every applicant has a criminal history run. Every applicant has a CCAP run. Every applicant has a check of all reports that have occurred with their name on it to see what circumstances have occurred around them. We don't take this lightly.
Sure.
I approve a lot of bartenders' licenses. It's just the closeness of each of these offenses, the time frame associated with them, is one of the reasons why I came to this decision for myself.
Got it. And I guess, sorry, just one more question. If we were to issue the license, it's still up to the private establishment whether to employ the individual with the license.
That's
Is that
correct.
right? Okay.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yep. And they also have the ability, as long as they follow Wisconsin law, to pull the background check whenever they would like to as well, right?
They can, yes.
Yeah.
And in all fairness to Ms. Whitcomb, she still can work without a license as long as there's a licensed bartender there.
Sure. Sure.
May I? That being said, for my employers to have another individual there is a strain on them because they would have to pay another individual to sit there, or they would have to take time out of their day when they have other things to do, when I could just be there by myself if I get approved.
Sure.
Deputy Mayor.
Thanks.
Thank you. Just help me understand clarification. I understand this is not a renewal, it's a new license, but you said you've been bartending for 10 or 12 years.
Yep, I took a break
Oh,
for a
gotcha,
while,
okay.
and so I let my license slide, and this is me getting back into it.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Larson?
Chief Smith, I'm still trying to get my head around how extenuating a circumstance this is, and it's okay if there's not an answer to that. But do you think as a path forward, because Ms. Whitcomb came here, I can sense some consternation up here because no one wants to go against your wishes because we like you and you do this very well. And we have no reason to question your judgment on this. However, is there a scenario where, I don't think very often, I watch every council meeting, I've never seen anybody else come here to contest a bartender license issuance before. So is there a circumstance that exists for you to make this work in the interim, rather than say, wait a year before you can get your license? Can she be issued a license on a probationary period, and if anything happens, is gone in perpetuity? Is there?
No.
And that's, okay.
You would have
I
to.
didn't ask you, I'm just kidding.
You would have to revoke the license, so that would be a full revocation hearing if you would remove it.
Which council could do.
Right.
Correct.
Yeah.
If something happened, it would have to be a full revocation hearing, not a conditional grant.
Understood.
That was the question.
So you can't issue it, we can't decide to issue it and put an extra clause on it that if anything else happens, then we revoke it. That was my question. I didn't phrase it very well.
I think what would happen is that
Go through a revocation hearing.
Yes, if we were to find any violation, which in all difference to Ms. Whitcomb, we don't track people.
Right.
And with the hundreds that we do, there's no flagging system to say this person did something, maybe it wasn't selling underage, but maybe it was something that rose to a criminal level. There's no way for us to track that, to say this is a problem, unless it rises to the top. I will say that when I say I generally will look at it in a year's time frame of essentially following our ordinances and laws. Her offenses the last offenses that she was convicted of were in December.
Mm-hmm.
So December of this year, if she were to reapply in December, if you didn't grant her a license tonight and she were to reapply in December, I would look at it and go, it's a full year of not having any issues. I think we should give her a chance. And that would be up to, if I signed off on it, then she would be issued a license. But that's the standard that I generally put with anybody. I give them a year.
Sorry, may I speak on that? That would be several more months of me not being able to legally bartend, which would not allow me to pay my rent, my bills, my livelihood. It is the only job I've ever had. And that would also entail me possibly doing this illegally, which I'm trying to avoid doing. So, yeah, I can wait, but then my employers would have to dish out more money of their pockets, and I doubt they'll do that, so I probably would not be employed anymore, and I wouldn't be able to have a livelihood.
Councilmember Flom.
Quick question on the revocation process. Have we ever been in a situation where we've granted a license kind of in the spirit of a probationary asterisk and had to do a revocation? And if we have, when was the last time we had to do that? If you don't have that on you, I understand. But to Councilmember Larson's point, I wish there could be an avenue in which we could say, all right, here's a conditional or probationary item, and I don't think that's doable here. But I do want to thank you for coming, because it's not easy to come to a council meeting and to, especially something that is very personal. So I just want to thank you for doing that. So.
Councilmember Esslinger.
Thank you, Mayor. I think Councilmember Larson said it also. I mean, I have had the chance to meet and talk to Chief Smith on a few occasions now, and I do appreciate and respect his opinions on many matters, especially, obviously, in the legal realm. You know, he has a standard, what he believes is appropriate and inappropriate. And I think if you did a poll of 7 council members, we probably would all have a differing opinion of what level we would rise to on issuing the license or not, or what we would allow problems or mistakes or whatever. And quite frankly, if we're going to be penalized for making mistakes in life, I wouldn't be sitting up here, I can tell you that. So I think from what the young ladies explained, serving a minor, I used to own a bar. Every bartender has served a minor somewhere along the line. The other things that she's explained, I don't know, it sounds like they've been found not guilty or she doesn't do. I just don't know if this rises to the level of not giving a license where she can, you know, go about doing her job and pay the bills and whatever. And, you know, we do have that out where if she becomes a problem or does whatever terrible things, then we have that process where we can revoke that license. And I'm confident that's not going to happen. So I'm inclined to give her the license. Thank you.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
The only thing I just wanted to point out is in a situation like this, not only the bartender is fined, but also the establishment is, and they are responsible, and they can get in big trouble for their license if it's a repeat offense as well. So any employer that you would have has a really good reason to make sure that you know your stuff and make sure that you're well trained. When is the last time that you did the Serve Safe course?
It would have been about 2 months ago when well, no, a little longer than that because I got 2 probationaries. So when I first applied for the license.
Okay.
I did the course a couple days before that.
Okay, thank you. Which that would have been back in December, I think, is when December 22nd is when she applied, so summertime.
Somewhere around there.
Yeah. So if I may speak to council, to be clear, I appreciate the trust that you provide to me to do my job. And my job is the administrative side of it. You guys have the tough job of doing the life decision stuff. I'm just the first level of it. If you decide to grant a license, that's your choice, and I respect that immensely. So my position, I'm very comfortable where I am, and you can certainly make whatever decision you want to make, and I'd be very comfortable with that as well.
As a council, we bear the responsibility of our consequences, but I'm confident that you going forward will do a job in a clear and legal manner, so I'm inclined to support. Thank you.
If there's no other comments, if you'll, City Clerk, if you'll take the roll. We had a motion in a second. Yep. If you'll take the roll on 24-268, remember a yes is to actually approve, a no is to deny.
Correct. Bulow?
Aye.
Stevenson?
Aye.
Nichols?
Aye.
Larson?
Aye.
Esslinger?
Aye.
Flom?
Aye.
Mughawar?
Nope.
Carried 6-1.
Thank you. Next up, Resolution 24-269. This is to approve a Class B beer license, combination novelty store and tavern. This is for Can LLC. I do have 2 people registered to speak. Shonda Anderson's first, and then Kate Voss following. Welcome.
Hi. Shonda Anderson. Do I have to go through all that?
Nope, we got it.
Excellent, because I don't want any of you to know where I live. No, just kidding. So I'm just here to reiterate a couple of things. And I want you just to hear me. I'm just here to talk, I like to talk. Anyone that knows me, which almost all of you.
I did forget to remind it is limited to 5 minutes, Shonda.
Okay, sure. Thanks, Matt. I'm going to take all 5 of that, too. Anyway, I'm going to start way back 17 years ago when I started to open a business in downtown Oshkosh. And some of the issues that I had back in those days were very frustrating to me. And I cried, and I pouted, and I got mad, and whatever. Any of you who have ever owned a business or started to open a business, you would probably know the frustrations of trying to open a business. Right, Paul?
Absolutely.
And Larson? Man, did we commiserate for those first few months. Maybe still to this day, we commiserate. Anyway, through the 17 years, I think, that I've been in business, I've seen a lot of forward momentum coming in Oshkosh. And I know that there is a lot of work that's being done by a lot of people to make this city amazing, right? And I like to think that I had a hand in that, because I feel very strongly about the city. I love this city. I probably love this city more than many, and I will do anything for this city. I put all of my money behind that, and I invest in Oshkosh. I love the people. I love all of them, most of them, not all. I don't know about Dean. Okay. Anyway, that's just a joke. Anyway, now my license is going to get pulled. Anyway, what I'm here to say is I appreciate everything that the city does, and I appreciate all the forward thinking. And I am going to reiterate how important it is for us to continue to think forward and be progressive. Because that COVID, you remember that thing, 2020, that killed us. That killed us small businesses. And now, no offense, I understand assessments had to happen in the wheel tax and all of that I understand all of that. I understand, I am friends with that guy over there, and he explains stuff to me like I'm a 3-year-old, and it works. So I understand that we need this stuff to happen, because we need a tax base to have nice streets and parks and city employees. But you know what else we need? We need a really strong downtown. Okay, that said, I'm reining it in. How much do I got left, Matt?
You got about 2.5.
Oh, well, then, anyway, I'm a big advocate for anything that's going to make our downtown better. We need more businesses downtown. We need small businesses, because the small businesses is the heartbeat of this community. And what I'm asking, and I know there's probably some state liquor law, something crazy about, she's not gonna, they aren't gonna, did you know these 2 people moved here by choice from Seattle? From Seattle, by choice, to move to our Oshkosh. Anyway, I think that's impressive. My husband's like, oh my God, did they win a trip or something? I'm like, I don't know, Larson did it. Anyway, so we're super lucky to have this talent. Now this talent wants to open a business, or they have, but they want to do something. And I think it's probably something crazy like they're not serving food, or they want to sell and serve, or I don't even know. I can't keep up with it anymore. I kind of hand in my paperwork to the city clerk and be like, help me. And they do. And but I need us to stay forward thinking in the downtown, because it matters to the rest of the businesses downtown that our downtown is thriving. I mean, for those of you who don't know me, I own Carmel Crisp. And I like to think that it is something that the city likes to have. I want to be in a downtown that is thriving, and I want a city and a council that supports a thriving downtown and is willing to do what they need to do to make that happen. I'm not saying that I'm going to move, but it could happen. I'm just kidding. I couldn't leave Mark and Dean. Anyway, that's all I have to say. I would really like us to figure out how to help these 2 transplants who are amazing performers and don't look anything like the characters they play when they're in normal people clothing. Anyway, so thank you for listening to me, and I'm hoping that you understand how much I love this community and really would appreciate more forward thinking. Okay? Oh, I also am a big advocate for trying to get those millennials here, right? Didn't we just win something, Mark, did we just win something like the best city in the United States for?
That's close enough.
Yeah.
Something like that.
That was it.
That's it. So to get those millennials like their arts and their small towns and their shopping locals, you're probably a millennial. And those are the people we need to start attracting. And you know what attracts those people? Them. Arts and music and a great downtown. So just remember that when you go to, I don't know, talk about whatever to make our downtown better. Thank you. Do I
Thank
still
you.
have time?
Nope.
No matter what, see.
Kate Voss. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me up here tonight. Thank you for being here and for listening to everyone. And I want to give a shout out also to all of my supporters and friends who came out to this meeting to show support for Can. I'm Kate Voss. I'm the owner of Can. We just opened February 8th on Parkway in Maine, downtown Oshkosh. And thank you, Chandra, for that awesome speech. My husband and I moved here from Seattle 3 years ago after touring the United States as a duo called Sunday and Mr. Gessel. And we were living and touring full-time in our motorhome, and we toured here. We played Beckett's, we played the Grand a couple of times, and we were just like, it's time to kind of settle down, start a family, and see what new things life can bring us, and we decided to move to Oshkosh. And one of our dreams was to open up a shop, a boutique and bar. And I got that idea from touring through Denver, Colorado. There was a place there called Garage Sale that was just full of vintage and new items, and they had a full bar, and I was like, this is a really cool idea. It's really bringing a lot of different people into this space, and I thought, gosh, it'd be super cool to try something like that someday. And we're here in Oshkosh, and we're like, let's do it. So we found a partner who actually bought the 584 to 586 buildings on Parkway in Maine, a partner who owns a record label. My husband and I also own a record label, and so we've kind of joined forces with them, and the space next door to Can was already a recording studio, so our studios have now combined, and we have been producing music for the last couple of months, and we have been distributing local musicians' albums from Oshkosh all the way to Japan. So we have invested a lot of our time and energy into creating something new and exciting here in Oshkosh. This resolution is basically to define my shop as a combined novelty store and tavern. We don't have the tavern part as of yet, as you all know. The novelty store has kind of been up in questions because a lot of people have been assuming that my shop is a dress shop. So I just wanted to give a shout out to Deputy Mayor Bulow, Councilmember Chris Larson, and DJ. I know that you did try to stop by. Kyle told me for stopping by and for checking out my space to kind of understand a little bit more about what it is we're going for at Can. It is a space for art and artists. I have host, let's see, I think 11 different local artists with different mediums, from oil on canvas to leatherwork to woodwork and fashion design. So I'm showcasing a lot of different local arts at my shop. I also have, I don't know if my list of items was sent to you guys, but there's a lot of weird stuff we have at Can that you might want to check out this Christmas. And I was also asked to maybe give some suggestions on what the term novelty store means for the city of Oshkosh. So I think that you guys maybe have that and have seen that already as well. Awesome, that's great. Just want to let you all know that we are here to stay. We moved our family above, to the apartment above Can. We are due in August to have a little baby girl. So this is definitely our home now. We are really grateful to be here and be part of the community in Oshkosh, and we've been working hard the last 3 years, my husband Jason Gessel and I, to develop more community, especially within the music scene. Obviously, that's kind of where we're coming from as business owners with our record label and our music entertainment business. This is a completely new and somewhat foreign way of life for us. We are not shop owners, but we thought, hey, what the heck, let's give it a try. Let's occupy, one of these vacant buildings here in downtown Oshkosh. And I cannot tell you how many people have come into my shop saying, thank you so much. Thank you so much for bringing some life into downtown Oshkosh, for I've been involved in all of the gallery walks since I've been open. So we've done 3. I've done the wine walk, that was last Saturday. I've done the chocolate stroll. I go to all the bid meetings, and I try to be as involved as I can to try and, like Chandra was saying, attract the younger crowd. And I have stuff for everyone at Can for sure. But it is really important to me to kind of start something new, to kind of attract not only, people of my same mindset, but also, tourism and EAA and people coming in and go, oh, what is this? This is so unique and this is so different. I would love to kind of expand on that. I have a lot of ideas with expanding Can, and I think that getting this liquor license is a great step forward in creating something that's really different and unique in downtown Oshkosh. As I said before, my space has already impacted a lot of people. My favorite reaction when people come into my store is, oh my God, look at that. And I get that all day, every day, and I love it that people are just so excited about this new, space that we have in downtown Oshkosh. I think that's all I have to say. I want to just reiterate how much I appreciate the city for working with me and trying to figure out a solution to, create this space. I know that it's pretty new and it's a little bit different, especially for the type of space that I'm in. But I think that we can find a way forward. And if you guys have any questions, I know all the answers.
Councilmember Stevenson, if you wouldn't mind, if we can get a motion in a second first.
Move it.
Second.
Perfect. Councilmember Stevenson, you're on the floor.
Yeah, I was in your shop too. You might have not recognized me. I was much more millennial than my hair was up and my glasses were off, so.
Oh, hi. Okay. It's great to see you again.
Yeah, so I like the idea of trying to do something unique here, but I guess it's more of a question for staff. I know we've gotten this kind of whole write-up on the novelty aspect of this. Can you guys maybe just touch a little bit more on that? And then Attorney Lawrenson, I mean, do you feel?
Well,
yeah,
I'll get started and then, Councilmember Larson and Kate met with staff and we went over the details of what she was proposing. And we have not ever done something like this because, frankly, the definition assistance we get from the state was little to none. So we had to create a definition of novelty store because none exist in the statutes. So we asked Kate to actually provide us with that listing, which is why we provided it in the agenda packet. The idea behind that is so that it documents and memorializes what she views a novelty store as, and if council can agree with that, we've inserted that. So one of the findings, and this is unusual for a liquor license, but because it's never been done before here, it's adding this exemption, which I can't remember how long it's been in the statutes, but it hasn't been in the statutes for a really long time. But it allows a novelty store. So one of the findings that you'll make is that you will say the definition that Ms. Voss has provided is sufficient for the council to make a finding that this can qualify as a novelty store and tavern. So because of the uniqueness of it, we've put some provisions in there, because right now, that building cannot be used as a bar because there are certain parts. Once you say you're a bar, you're in a different situation from the building code. Specifically, it's considered a place of public assembly. A few years ago, the council approved the liquor license for the 404 building. That was an office building. Now it's something, they had to do some things to make them compatible so they could, and finally did receive a liquor license. So we had met with Ms. Voss, and things looked, good, so we proceeded with it. But we put those provisions in there because we need to know that this is a legal use as a place of public assembly. And the fact that there's a bar in there, that's what does it. But the novelty store tavern combination, the findings that the council will make will satisfy that requirement from our standpoint. So staff recommends approval of the license.
And then if other novelty shops kind of sprung up, they would go through this similar process where council would have to make similar findings they would submit another list of items and things like that. Is that the idea?
I think that's what we would eventually do, but we're honing in because this is the first one. Could somebody else come in? And we had a very lively discussion about, what somebody could define as novelty.
Sure.
And we had some creative discussions. I think we're okay with what they've submitted, and if the council makes that finding, if somebody else wants to have us consider a similar finding, we can do that. One of the other things we did add, though, because of the narrowness of this, and because of the limited number of combination Class B licenses, we are specifying that it's only related to Class B fermented malt beverage. That's just to make sure that we don't have a run on, well, let's get combination Class Bs, which could dilute the pool of combination Class B licenses. Actually, and this is getting a little bit into the weeds, but I view this as an opportunity to take a look at what the state's doing on some other levels with the fermented malt beverages. They've changed the definition, or they're changing the definition of fermented malt beverages. And we're going to look at that. We may reach out to other businesses that currently have combinations. They may only need a Class B fermented, such as what Kate's asking for. And if we can do that, that might free up a few more licenses. But we've got to see what is it Department of Revenue that's going to eventually come out with those. Did I miss anything, Lynn? Or did I?
I think you covered it.
Okay, so that's kind of where we're at, but staff recommends approval with the conditions identified in the resolution.
You all good? Councilmember Nichols, followed by Councilmember Flom, and then we'll go for a few more after that.
Thanks. First, thanks for being here. Thank you. Congratulations on your shop moving to Oshkosh, the baby. All of that's awesome. So we'll have a party afterwards at the shop, hopefully. But I think this is really cool. I'm also a millennial that chose to move to Oshkosh with my husband from a large city. So I think this is really cool. I think a vibrant downtown is incredibly important. I think this is unique for Oshkosh in the state of Wisconsin. It's unique in Oshkosh. And I think it's, again, very exciting. I think it's an experiment. So you're going to learn a lot, and you're going to be able to tell the rest of us what we did wrong and how we talked about this the wrong way through the process.
It's another growth opportunity.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
We'll congratulate you on that, too, again, when we get there. I do have some questions, though. I know we've had some back and forth earlier via email. Mark, just because you, City Manager Roloff, you just mentioned Bar 404. When we issued that...
Venue 404.
Venue 404. When we issued that liquor license, did we put conditions on building code inspections in the actual liquor license?
They made the changes before they applied for the license.
Okay. Do you know of a circumstance where we've put these conditions in a liquor license? I know City Attorney didn't know of any specifically, but do you know of any?
I think over time we have, but if you press me for specifics,
Yeah.
I can't give you specifics off the top of my head, but we've put in conditions before. But normally we ask that the conditions get met before it even happens.
Sure.
But we're not recommending that in this case.
So I think my concern, and I don't know if others share the concern, my concern with structuring it as approval of the liquor license with conditions that have to be met by the property owner that are then determined, that we then have to determine if they're met at the city level, then city council is approving the liquor license, but actually issuing the liquor license is then delegated to a city department. And I think I pause there because we could approve the liquor license and then the requirements for building code still have to be met, right? Even irrespective of the conditions.
We wanted to avoid the challenge of waiting until the conditions get met.
Yeah.
The idea was, if the conditions get met, then we can immediately issue the license because administratively, we will have been given that direction from the council. If we go the other way, then they don't know if they're going to get the liquor license approved or not, and then they've made that investment and then go to council. We felt it was fair to the applicant that we say, is the minute you get the condition, the building taken care of, here's your license, because I would hate to put ourselves in a situation, we'll get all the conditions met, then we'll give you a license. 404, in their case, they were operating as an office building.
Sure.
And so they were able to, they got revenue, they got rent, and that was okay. They wanted to add the bar as another feature, and we had to shut them down because they were operating as a reception event space, and we're like, you guys can't do that because you're not a place of public assembly. So then they held off on doing those, got those fixed, then we, once they got that, then we issued the license. But they had the revenue flow.
Right.
In Kate's case, she's only got half of her store going. It was a lot more than half the 404 building was going. All we were adding was one part of the building, so it was a little different.
So I guess practically speaking, though, if we didn't have the conditions, if we took the conditions out of the resolution as it exists today, we approved the liquor license, you would hand her a liquor license today, essentially, and she just couldn't use it. She couldn't sell any beer until she meets those requirements. Is that right?
The fear we have is that without those conditions, we don't have any leverage to get those building improvements done. And from a safety standpoint, those are fire code issues that are of concern, and I think Chief Stanley can talk about those.
Respectfully, though, in all of our liquor licenses, I think we include the caveat that fire inspections required. Do I have that right?
Yes.
So I'm just asking about the additional building code inspections that are unrelated to fire specifically. I think fire and health still have to
The building code changes are related to the fire. They're interrelated.
But the fire inspection
They're
requirement
intertwined.
would still remain in a typical liquor license.
Correct, but
And this has new requirements that are going to actually give the building code inspection department the ability to issue the license, essentially.
I would disagree. I don't think that's,
Yeah, the dilemma is that this building is not built for a bar, a place of public assembly. And I'm concerned about leaving that condition out, and we don't have recourse if the building improvements don't get done. So the idea is that if the conditions get met, then administratively, the council's already given direction to the city clerk that once the conditions are met, we'll issue the license.
I'll ask one more question, and then I'll let other people talk. Wouldn't you have that ability anyway to revoke the license in the event that somebody was operating without code requirements?
You didn't ask me earlier.
Yeah.
Council's been very reluctant to revoke any licenses.
Yeah.
And we had, for gross violations, I'm just being honest, the council has a very tough time revoking licenses.
Yeah.
I haven't seen a single one in 16 years. And it's better to get these things taken care of in advance rather than after the fact. A revocation hearing requires a great deal of staff time, requires a great deal of process that we have to go through, because it really is, it's a due process hearing that person has. It's a lot, and now I'm getting into legal stuff, so I'm going to have the city attorney just, correct my non-law school.
and there are only certain things you can revoke for. So we would have to look at what can, the more likely is if she's operating and it's not compliant with building code, we're going to issue a license and then start issuing citations.
Which I imagine we do today anyway. right? When we, I mean, I imagine there are people with liquor license where we've issued citations for building code violations. Is that not true?
Typically, every liquor license we have,
Yeah.
it's code compliant.
Yeah.
So
Well, I
this
mean,
is
after the
actually a
fact.
very rare case where it is not set up for a tavern or a place of assembly use.
Sure.
If the license, if you, just theoretically, hypothetically speaking, if the council voted this down tonight for whatever reason, the novelty store could continue, and there'd be no violations, because it's okay as a mercantile. Once you create a bar, you've created a place of public assembly, and you have to, and that has to be treated as a place of public assembly. Every other bar in town, and I'm sure there may be an exception that somebody can point out to me, but I'd say, in general, every other bar in town is under the code of being a place of public assembly, and this would be an exception to that rule. And I don't know if that's fair to the other establishments in town that have met that requirement, that this one doesn't. And I think council could be setting a dangerous precedent that it's like, well, if you did it for one, why don't you do it for others? I mean, this is getting a little far-fetched, but somebody could say, I want to do this in my home, and I'll take care of everything later. Just give me the license now, and I'll fix it. Now, that's not Kate. Kate's been nothing but honest with us. I mean, she's advertising, she's promoting, she is not shy about any of this. And it's, I agree with you, Councilmember Nichols. I like the concept, but we have an additional obligation of health and safety. And sometimes we have to play the bad guy, and Shonda will give me a hard time about that. But that's our job, and that's why we're making the recommendation about that condition.
Yeah, understood. And again, I'll let someone else talk. You mentioned
too.
precedent. You mentioned precedent, and I think where I'm concerned is that we're going to start adding conditions to liquor licenses in order to have leverage over other issues that could be handled a different way. So that's my opposition to the language there, but I'll let someone else talk. I know we have other concerns.
Councilmember Floam, followed by Deputy Mayor.
So I have a couple things to touch on. The first, I want to say thank you to Kate and your perseverance and your tenacity with this. I also moved to Oshkosh from a larger city, and so welcome, first of all. And second of all, I think we need more people like you who come from different parts of the country because, you know, if we want a vibrant downtown, this is something that I think that we need. But when looking at the resolution, one of the things that I would like to kind of touch on is what Councilmember Nichols touched on earlier. The conditions do seem a little bit redundant. I think we have redress of grievance if we do have any issues in different avenues. I do feel like this is singling the business owner out. So that's where it doesn't sit well with me in terms of the conditions. So I don't know if other members of council feel the same way as I do, but it does seem like we're adding more red tape on it. I understand the reasoning because of it. I don't necessarily agree with it because I do think that we have those legal tools at our disposal if there were any situations to arise. So those are my 2 cents on that one.
Deputy Mayor, followed by Councilmember Larson.
I feel bad because I'm going in a different direction. But I did have to look it up. I am barely a millennial, but I moved from a much smaller city, so a quick question on this. So one of my favorite things is that my sons, 13 and 15, when they get their allowances, they run downtown to the comic book store and the game store. Would kids be able to go in there to buy gifts for other people because it's now a tavern? Like, how does that legality work?
It's now a tavern.
Okay, so, okay.
I read something a little bit different in the statute 125.323M, which I'm very familiar with now. But it said that if people are going in to do business that is not related to the tavern, that they're allowed to go in. Am I wrong about that?
I'm not going to answer an advice question on.
No, that's fair.
I'm sorry.
I know there's kids that go bowling, and bowling alleys sometimes sell alcohol, and I get that. It's going to be a
There
rare.
are lots of exceptions under the underage section of the code.
Sure.
We would have to establish whether she fit under any individual one. I don't believe combination novelty store and tavern is a listed exception under there, though.
Okay. I'm guessing not a real popular issue that's going to come up anyway, but it popped up in my head. I'm going to tell Ms. Voss the same thing I told her when I toured it. It's a really cute store. It's not for me, but that's okay. It doesn't have to be for me. I also have an unpopular position that I'm going to usually fight against more access to alcohol, but again, that's me, and this doesn't have to be for me, and that's one of the beautiful things about getting elected on council, is it's not my personal taste that matters, it's what's good for the community. And overall, I think the store, I do support the changes as addressed in there, whether it's done with the license, without the license, before the license, after the license. I'm gonna leave that to people that know much more about that and study 125, and all that fun things. But I just wanted to say thank you for opening the store, thank you for coming here. That's about my 2 cents, is that I think it's a really, really cute concept. I think I want to see more development in that area. I would prefer it without alcohol, but that's just me, and I'll yield.
Councilmember Larson, followed by Councilmember Stevenson.
Sure, so I have, as Mark alluded to earlier, City Manager Roloff, I have way too much to say on this, as you all know, and I'm sorry, and I will keep it as brief as I can. It's great to hear that the support for this, Attorney Lawrence, and I'm eternally grateful for the letter you wrote on this after the meeting we all had, because it's very well written, it is very well put together. It covers every nuance of what this is, because there's an exemption in Chapter 125, and then an exemption in the exemption. Councilman Bueller, you just mentioned bowling alley. It's a great example, because that is the exact same exemption for Class B fermented lives here with novelty and tavern as bowling alley. So there's precedent for all these things. I'm very grateful that Councilman Nichols brought up the addition of building inspections and change of use with this. And Mark, I don't want to press you on it, but you say that and Attorney Lawrence and I talked about this afternoon. I can't find anywhere, and we've talked about this, that I don't think you have either, where you can find an instance where just issuing a liquor license makes something an assembly, or just issuing a liquor license makes something a tavern necessarily. By definition, maybe tavern, but it doesn't precipitate change of use just by issuance of liquor license. So Mike, go ahead.
You had asked if there
Yeah.
was a statute that says issuance of a liquor license changes use. I am not aware of a statute that says that,
Correct.
but I think building inspection can address
Right.
change of use, which is where I
And
directed.
my point is, either way, that's great. And if it does, then it needs to be addressed by the right department at that time. I'm very frightful as a person who owns 2 liquor licenses, who's gone through the process, who served on the Wisconsin Restaurant Association Board of Directors for 16 years, advocating for and against Chapter 125. I'm very reluctant about putting things into issuances of liquor license that involve anything other than what the statute has always said, which is fire, police, and health, because that's a high bar. It's a high thing to meet. Those inspections are perpetual, they're difficult, and I am all for making this the right use. I just want it to be done in the right way, and my fear is that if we add this provision to all liquor license, not Kate's liquor license, any liquor license application, then people who want to do this or other creative things will look at that and go, this is a place where that's harder to do than it is in Sheboygan, where it's not. And I don't want this to be a deterrent. I want it to be done correctly. I'm entirely with you, but I'm very frightful of what happens when we add things to a process we have, and one that's very well outlined. Chapter 44 of Municipal Code explicitly says fire, police, and health. The 2 licenses we approved, the 2 resolutions we approved this evening say fire, police, and health. The 100 I looked at say fire, police, and health. When Beckett's got its license, it was a massive change of use. My resolution said fire, police, and health. When Wagner Market got its application, when we applied, it was not in my resolution. It was different and by the right departments, which is great. That's how it should be. So whether or not, I don't think we have enough information to decide if issuing this license constitutes a place of public assembly. I personally don't think that's the case, but we certainly haven't given that information with regards to this resolution. So I'm not comfortable voting on that part of it, but I really need to see it happen because it's taken a long time and it's a cool idea.
Maybe
Go ahead.
appropriate for Mr. Fabish.
Yeah.
Because, Mr. Fabish is the one who's...
I'll let Jerry walk up, and I'll just mention, we have lots of different codes that sometimes it's zoning code, building code, state code, stormwater, and sometimes they don't all fit neatly together in a puzzle. So we have to look at the intent of all the codes. So zoning code, the use is fine. But building code, this is where we need to get them up to an assembly. And staff has been working since late 2023 on this. So we are very supportive of the project, just as long as they make those improvements to make it a place of assembly. Go ahead, Jerry, if you have anything else to say.
Yeah, so basically, when it comes to assembly, so when you're gathering people and also drinking, that would be considered assembly versus mercantile. So it's not just the alcohol, it's people gathering together, having events, stuff like that, that creates an assembly use.
I understand that, but can you tell us where that exists in any code?
It's right underneath the definitions for the categories.
It's A, right?
It's a category A.
And then there's small space clarification under A, which makes it not A anymore. And I'm not that good at this, so bear with me. But it makes it B, and then there are, as Attorney Lawrence can discuss as well, there are different provisions that come. This is not a seated assembly hall for 100 seats because it's not big enough.
Right.
This is not a concert venue because it's not big enough. So it's a small use within a special designation, and then there are other things that follow. And they wind up being, I think, and this is where you know way more than I do, but I think they wind up being, when you get into B assembly, so the small space assembly, they wind up being the same as mercantile. And maybe this is really easy. Maybe what we need to hear is what needs to be done to make it the right thing to make this happen. Because that's not in this resolution either. This resolution just says, y'all can do whatever you want, and she's got to do it. That's where we have a hard time.
Right. And I believe, and I'm not 100% on the building codes either as far as commercial goes, because I'm a plumbing inspector, basically. I just took this position over in January, so for me to tell you exactly the code and how to get to it, I could not tell you. But what I can explain is that there's a limit on the size of the building. So I think it's 50,000 square feet. That sets it off. So this building is 50,000 square feet. So at least that's what I've heard from a determination.
It's 3,000 square feet, maybe? Total.
The total building?
The total building. So that would
It's only 2
be,
stories tall.
but it's also, that's all one building, isn't it? So it's 584 and 586?
It might be
They're on one
5,200 square feet combined parcels without the basement, might be 7,000 square feet with the basements. It's nowhere near 50,000 square feet. My building on the corner of Main and Merritt is 30,000 square feet, and this building is about a quarter the size.
Okay. And like I said, I'm not completely on the commercial building code, so I couldn't answer those questions exactly. But the whole thing comes down to assembly use. So people are going to be gathering in this space. We have to make sure that it's, handicap accessible, meets egress, fire. The fire, when they made their decision on this, the fire department looked at it as mercantile use. That's it. They didn't realize that the plans were eventually to be a tavern / novelty store. So when you start doing tavern or bar, it falls under assembly use. So that's why they have to have a change of use.
And again, I want to believe that, and I only know what I've asked the dozen engineers and architects that I've asked in the 3 weeks about this leading up to this, what they said, and no one has told me that's the case, because no one can point to the world in where that exists as the defining moment that makes something an assembly. Because assembly use is, correct me if I'm wrong, car dealership is an assembly. Doctor's office is assembly. Those are, the small waiting rooms are assembly Bs. That's why they exist. So that's why the smaller category exists. So,
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that.
and either way, it doesn't matter for the sake of this discussion necessarily, because win, lose, or draw, that has to be corrected at some point in time. I think what we're saying is it's hard to have it in this as a provision to make it happen, unless we know specifically what the things you're going to ask her to do are.
Well, maybe it'd be more appropriate to have Fire Chief Stanley come up and maybe explain that a little bit. Chief, if you could.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. So, as Mr. Fabish was just saying, we conducted our fire inspection. We did that based on it being classified as an occupancy for mercantile, meaning that they are going to sell goods and services in there. That's what the building was probably originally designed for, many, many decades ago. That now we're looking at changing the intended use of that. So mercantile has the intention of, I'm going to come in, do a business transaction, leave. That I'm not going to have a static load of people in there staying for a longer amount of time. When we're going to put a bar in there where people are going to be present in groups for a longer period of time, then you're talking about that as becoming an assembly. And if we are going to classify that as an assembly, then it falls under different regulations of the fire code, meaning it needs more fire protection, exit lighting, exits, width of the exits, things like that in general are things that you would look at. So we don't inspect it based on what it might be someday. We inspect it on what it is now. If I inspect a hotel, we inspect it based on it being a hotel, not that someday it may become a church. When that occupancy changes, then we change the lens in which we look at it, and it's a whole different set of codes that you would apply to that. That's, to Mr. Roloff's point, I think I would caution against creating a scenario where we have to try to put toothpaste back in a tube. If we say, okay, you can do that, and if you don't, then we'll cite you. That creates more problems and more long-term management issues. What we want to make sure is that we are protecting the safety, and that's what the fire codes are developed to do, is to protect the life safety of occupants of buildings, and that's based on previous events and incidents. So while I too support the innovative nature, the idea of new concepts, downtown businesses, we have to look at that from the frame of how does it fit within the fire code.
Mayor can go.
I do have council members before you do.
I'm sorry.
Am I next? You want to go?
I just have a couple suggestions maybe based on the chief saying what he said and some of the comments from the other council members. First off, Ms. Nyforth just confirmed it's 50,000 cubic feet, because the math didn't make sense to me either, because there's no way I was going to get 50,000 square feet, but it's 50,000 cubic, and the minute you start going up, you multiply it more. Be that as it may, based on the fact that the chief has provided you some specifics, it's about those codes that the chief's concerned about. And there was a comment, normally it just says police, fire, and health. If the council wants to remove those conditions, but leave in there satisfactory to the conditions identified by the chief of police and the fire chief, the chief's outlined those things. That way but Kate still has to get those things done before we can administratively issue the license. We've done that, and that's been a condition. If the council's comfortable with that, I think we can work within the confines of that, so that, Kate can walk out knowing she's got a license conditioned upon those things, and then Chief Stanley can send, Chief Bending and Captain Clark over to work with them on what's needed. I think maybe that's the way out of this thing, because I think there's a lot of consensus that it's more than just a novelty store. It's a novel concept, and we want to certainly promote it, but we've got certain health and safety issues that we've got to follow, and if maybe that can take care of it, maybe we're okay. So, and my computer's not working tonight, so I'm cheating off of both screens here. So, under number 1, I'm going to read the whole thing, and then I'm going to suggest what you delete. I'll read the whole thing as it exists for our studio audiences. Satisfaction of such conditions as identified by the chief of police and fire chief, or their respective designees, or by a representative of the Winnebago County Health Department. Specifically, this license shall not be issued until A, the applicant has submitted building plans for review and approval which incorporate the proposed change of use for on-site food and/or drink consumption and assembly use. B, has met all fire and building code requirements, and C, the fire department has completed an inspection, provided a report to the city clerk proving the same. My suggestion would be to take out the language that begins with has submitted building plans for review and approval, which incorporate the proposed change of use for on-site food and drink consumption and assembly use. Take that away, only A, so A would, and eliminate under B has met all fire and building code requirements. Change it to specifically the license shall not be issued until A, the applicant has met all fire code requirements, and C, the fire department has completed inspection and provided a report to the city clerk for proving the same. That would be my recommendation. So you got to take out.
Sorry, wouldn't just leaving the first sentence have the same effect? And delete, because and sorry, I know I'm jumping in line a little.
And that's actually,
sorry,
hold on. We do have other council members that do want to speak and they haven't spoken yet. So don't consume too much of this time from him, please.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay.
My concern is that we're adding conditions in that second sentence that you're suggesting we keep that don't exist in any other liquor license.
He said delete them.
No, he wanted to keep a couple of them. A couple of the sub points under A. If we leave just the first sentence, isn't that sufficient because it says that we have satisfaction of such conditions as identified by the chief of police and fire chief?
Probably redundant. What do you? It's probably redundant. Arguably, I think I could agree with you. So basically, from specifically on, just take it out.
Sorry about that.
But it's satisfaction of such conditions as identified by police chief and fire chief. So I'm sorry, I was trying to cut to the chase because we're already at 8 o'clock, so I'm just out of courtesy, but this isn't just Mr. Nichols and I going back and forth.
Councilmember Stevenson.
Yeah, I guess I'm fine with that language. I think we're arguing a little bit about semantics up here. So I'm good with moving forward with that. If that's the direction we want to take, I want to get you your liquor license. I want you to do these cool things. I want to make sure that by setting this code right now, we're not going to get a bunch of other bar owners in here that say, well, now I want to sell tchotchkes up front to be a novelty liquor license and get the good stuff that has. So I want to make sure we're all in a row. We're not giving anyone special treatment, right? We're going to make sure it's an even playing field. If staff feels comfortable with eliminating those kind of lines that we had there, and it sounds like the issues, the building codes and the fire inspection is really almost synonymous, right? So I'm okay with that. I think we're good.
Councilmember Nichols, followed by Councilmember Larson.
Chris can go ahead.
I just wanted to say that city manager roll-up, that is exactly what I would have suggested, and that's the only ask, is to make it look like the other resolutions we approved this evening, and that verbiage is the same. That is perfect, and I thank you for it.
Any other council members wishing to speak on it? I'll go briefly. This discussion on this type of thing came up when we first had our discussions on the DORA. Well, none of you were around up here, but you were around the community, and we had discussions regarding mercantile stores selling alcohol. Not allowed, just straight up. This is a unique venture. It's a unique way of doing it. We are, I forget who just mentioned it, but we are treating this applicant differently. That's what we're doing here. We're managing by exception. That's what we do up here, so let's just be honest about it, though. So we are treating it differently, because we're trying to be very creative, and we're trying to be adaptable, and we're trying to make sure that we do have a vibrant downtown, and that it is unique, and that we can create unique spaces for people who aren't like Carl to go there.
Cheers.
So we have these types of discussions. I do have a question now, if you don't mind it, and it's putting you on the spot. Why do you need to sell alcohol to have such a vibrant space? And don't read anything more into it than just the question. I'm not alluding to I'm supportive or not against it. I'm just asking because we've had this discussion in this space regarding the alcohol consumption within the DORA, and you're part of that.
I am.
Yep.
within the
That's
DORA,
yep. So why is it needed in your mind?
That's a great question. Thank you for asking. Part of my initial business plan was to have this kind of unique space where you could sip and shop. We see that with the wine walk, and we see that with other events in Dora and things like that go on downtown Oshkosh. Personally, I'm a non-drinker, especially right now. So it's not really for me, but it's a space where I want to showcase art and artists. Like I said before, I've been involved in all 3 of the gallery walks since we opened on February 8th. And everybody, because I did buy a commercial cooler, and it's stocked full of bubbly water right now. And everybody who came to the art gallery, the gallery walks, came up to order something, and I was like, how about a black cherry sparkling water for you? And everyone was very sweet, and they did try to support, the proof of concept here, but everyone was like, when are you getting like, a beer or a wine or something that we could have, while we're here looking at art, purchasing things, that kind of thing. The other part of it, quite frankly, is that I've noticed that Oshkosh likes to drink, and that is definitely a form of financial stability for my business. And, I've loved just having the shop so far. It's a great vibe in there. I've been attracting, people that understand what I'm trying to do there, that's a little bit different, very inclusive, and want to create an environment where everybody feels welcome there, even Carl. So I think that just adding that element to it is just going to kind of give my business a little bit more cash flow, a little bit more room to grow, room to kind of expand and, do more community events. Farmers Market is starting on June 1st. That's something I'm definitely trying to get, extend my hours, open earlier for that. And yeah, just try to kind of get people in the door so that we can continue operating. As you probably know, running a small business and opening something completely from scratch is very expensive. So it would really kind of help out just keeping the store going.
Thank you. I appreciate the honesty.
Yeah.
I have concerns with the issuance of a license to a novelty tavern, to this change. I'm a precedence guy. I'm a process guy. This is not the only one we are going to see of this moving forward. Good or bad, it's just in the eye of the beholder on that one. That said, if staff is comfortable with the conditions as proposed, I'm good with it.
We would be looking for...
I'll do it. Yep.
Okay.
Yep, we'll get there. The second part of this, I wouldn't have moved forward. I wouldn't have moved forward with voting for it if we didn't still have the protections within the building health and safety. One of our number one jobs is the health, welfare, and safety of this community. And every time we go against a recommendation from our professionals on this staff, we are opening us up to events and issues that are unsafe and unwise for the community. So I'm comfortable with what we have here, that it won't move forward until the conditions have been met satisfactorily, and I'll vote for it. But I think this is a dangerous precedent that we're moving forward with. Councilmember Esslinger.
Thank you, Mayor. I really wasn't going to say anything, but I listened intently on the conversation that we've had here. And, I've been in and around government now on the council I've been on the council for 12 years and then I guess several years in between. And the thing that I like least about government is I think that it does overreach. We put up barriers, we put people through hoops, we ask them questions it's none of our business, quite frankly, and I think government needs to entice people to come here, like the young lady and her family are doing. And I think that what she wants to do downtown is, as Shonda said earlier, is something that is going to help out. Those are the types of things. I'm an old guy, probably nothing I'm going to do, but I'm an old guy, so that's just what I do. But I think that these are the things that are going to help Oshkosh moving forward into the future. So I don't think we're going against any recommendations by the staff. And again, I have the utmost respect for the chief. These individuals have started this business. They want to do this. It's going to make money for them. God forbid we have to make money in a business. So let's move aside. I think they're going to do what they know what they need to do. That's going to get done. If it doesn't get done, I can tell you right now, I have no problem with revoking the license. They have rules and they have to live by those. And if they don't, then it gets revoked. So let's stop with the roadblocks and get a little more business friendly and, drop some of this stuff. These people have got to go through these things. I had to do it myself. I had a business on Main Street years ago, and so I'm completely in favor of, I think, what the city attorney has talked about, Mr. Roloff has talked about, rewording this. I think it sounds reasonable, and move on. Thank you.
City Attorney, can you confirm that, so the change should be to remove everything after,
Delete the second sentence of condition number 1.
It's a simple way of saying it.
specifically, the license shall not be issued until ...
Specifically on.
Correct.
Okay. Okay.
Do you want a motion for that?
If I could have, if anyone would like to, make a motion to amend.
Could I say one more thing? I just want to, just to your point about alcohol, and I do understand that there are situations where alcohol becomes problematic. I do want to kind of reiterate that it is a store, and it's been functioning as a retail shop for the last 3 months, and we don't have bar hours. I'm not planning on having bar hours. I'm not closing at 2 a.m. We're not doing shots. This is all cans of beer that we're talking about. It's not like free-for-all. We're closing at 7. It's kind of for, like Carl was saying, maybe not for this person, but a lot of women come into my shop and it's like a fun hang. It's like a sip and shop mindset, not like let's do shots and get blackout drunk. Not the intention.
All right.
Deputy Mayor?
I would move to amend this as previously presented.
Second.
To clarify, for the record,
To delete the second sentence of condition 1.
Thank you.
any discussion on the motion to amend? City Clerk, if you'll take the roll on the motion to amend.
Buelow?
Aye.
Stevenson?
Aye.
Nichols?
Aye.
Larson?
Aye.
Esslinger?
Aye.
Flom?
Aye.
Mughawar?
Aye.
Carried 7.
So back to the resolution as amended. Any further discussion? Deputy Mayor?
I just want to say sorry for making you stand up here especially this long. So thank you for your perseverance. Let's do this.
If there's no other comments, if take the roll on the motion as amended.
As amended. Buelow?
Aye.
Stevenson?
Aye.
Nichols?
Aye.
Larson?
Aye.
Esslinger?
Aye.
Flom?
Aye.
Mughawar?
Aye.
Carried 7.
With that, we have one final resolution. I think it should be a quick one, and then we're going to take a brief break. Resolution 24-270, approved general development plan and specific implementation plan for drive-through restaurant at 502 West Murdoch Ave. Plan Commission recommends approval.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
No.
Seeing none, if you'll take the vote on resolution 24-270.
answered for me, not
Buelow?
Aye.
Stevenson?
Aye.
Nichols?
Aye.
Larson?
Aye.
Esslinger?
Aye.
Flom?
Aye.
Mughawar?
Aye.
Carried 7.
With that, we're going to take a brief recess, no more than 10 minutes, hoping for shorter than that.
The Oshkosh Common Council is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkosh.org. This coverage will resume shortly. The Oshkosh Common Council is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. The Oshkosh Common Council is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. The Oshkosh Common Council is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. The Oshkosh Common Council is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. The Oshkosh Common Council is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. The Oshkosh Common Council is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. The Oshkosh Common Council is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. The Oshkosh Common Council is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. The Oshkosh Common Council is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved.
Also, city manager and future agenda items. First up, we have council discussion, direction to staff. We have a few items here. First one up, overnight parking restrictions. Councilmember Nichols.
Thank you, and I'll try to keep it brief. So I've kind of divided this into three parts of where I see us being now, where I'd like to see us go, and then kind of why. But in terms of where I see us now is we do have a citywide restriction on parking on public streets without a permit between 2 a.m. and 5 a.m. Permits are issued in limited quantities only for specific streets. They require the movement of cars from one side to the other daily if they do have a permit. For visitors to Oshkosh, it's confusing. There's no signage that explains the nuanced rules in most other cities, I would say, at least that I've been to anecdotally. The general rule is you can park unless there's a sign that says you can't. For residents, there's no public places for cars to be left when someone's chosen to responsibly call an Uber or a Lyft. During the campaign, I heard from a mother who said that she's just told her 20-something-year-old kids that if they drink too much, they should leave their car and she'll pay the parking ticket. That's not a thought that really she should have, is the kids should say, I'm an Uber home, my car will be here tomorrow, I'll come get it. There's limited and inconsistent enforcement of parking restrictions is something I've heard from the city. And then something we learned tonight, I added this note, is we've reduced the minimum requirement for parking in multi-unit housing going forward. And so we're going to see an increased need for parking. And so I think getting ahead of this, kind of creating rules for the city that people understand and expect are important. So requests that I would have, I know will have to go to the city staff and it will have to go to the transportation committee to review. But we should generally allow parking, including overnight parking, without restriction on city streets unless there's a specific sign that limits or restricts parking or there's a declared emergency. We should use permanent and temporary signage for parking restrictions related to special events, street cleaning, and construction activities. I've lived in other cities that do just that. And that we should allow overnight parking in city lots. We're going to have to create rules to govern that, but generally speaking, the lots are there. So we should allow people to park in them. And then that kind of gets me to my conclusion of why I've gotten here. I've gotten a lot of complaints from people. This is something when I moved to Oshkosh, I did not know it was a rule. I actually learned during the campaign. Someone said, why do I get tickets on my street when I park here overnight? And I said, I don't know, because I don't. And he said, well, this just proves that it's limited enforcement. And so that was problematic. I heard from the mother, and then I actually heard from an attorney that my company uses in California, that her mom lives here, and they have to play this dance when she visits on Christmas of moving cars in and out of their single driveway. So that was kind of shocking. So anyway, especially now as we have a vehicle registration fee, and all registered cars in Oshkosh are actually paying for the city streets, the least we can do is provide clear guidance and allow people to park on those streets. So something I wanted to bring up. It's come up a lot as I've talked to the community. So I'd like the Transportation Committee and staff to review how we can improve these processes. Thanks.
Councilmember Flom.
Just to piggyback on this, I heard from a constituent about this week. This specific gentleman owns 3 cars, and he has a small driveway which he parks his trailer. And so he has no choice but to park the other cars outside of his street, outside of his house, right on his street. And he has been ticketed a number of times. He has lived in Oshkosh and owned this specific property for the past 15 years, and he has just started to get ticketed in the past 2 years. And so he says also this is selective enforcement, because for the last 13 years, he hadn't had that until the past 2 years. He started to see this. So with the vehicle registration fee, he's essentially being double charged for something he doesn't have any control over because he has his trailer in his own driveway. So I do understand that he could potentially move his cars, but it's outside of his house, so he shouldn't have to do that. So I'd also like to see if the Transportation Committee could put something together on that, and thank you for your time.
Councilmember Stevenson.
I think you guys need 4 head nods to move forward with something. I would agree. I'd like to look into our parking. Our Councilmember Nichols threw a lot at us, and I don't know if I can digest the whole thing, but anecdotally, I do think that our parking is a little bit more restrictive in the other communities, and if there's some way we can look into how we can make the parking a little bit less restrictive, I'd be all in favor of that. I always say that streets are our biggest public good, and our biggest public property, and we don't utilize them super well, so.
Councilmember Larson.
I'll be the fourth head nod for sure. I understand that what we have now has worked for a long time. The overnight parking permits is a solution, but I would love to discuss further ways that we can make this better. Particularly, I've never really understood the downtown lots, because we enforce until 6 p.m. Friday and then not until 9 a.m. Monday, but except that you can't be there overnight. So there's some misnomers in there to a degree. So I would love to look into this further and see if there's a more equitable and just a more peaceful way to do it. It makes sense.
Councilmember Esslinger.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm completely in favor of this. I brought this up when I was on the council years ago. The overnight parking situation, didn't agree with the 2 to 5 thing. And just so you know, you're going to have some people that are vehemently opposed to changing this in any way, shape, or form. One of them is an ex-judge that we have in Winnebago County. I'm not going to mention his name, but he lived across the street from my grandma and grandpa, and he called me, and he knew me from, he was having fun. He said, Paul, leave it alone. You don't need to do anything about this. And I just disagreed with him, but no, I think this is something we should look at. Thank you.
Well,
sounds like there's consensus to refer it to transportation, and, given everything, that's where I was going to suggest anyway. I think transportation is the appropriate body to take a look at that and make recommendations to you. And I think just do some good old-fashioned policy analysis. There's a lot of pros and cons, as Councilmember Esslinger pointed out, and so he's been listening to these for about 20 years now. So, but I'm sure it's just as passionate as it was 20 years ago as it is today. So, yeah, there's a lot of opinions out there, so we're happy to take a look at it and refer it to transportation.
Sounds good. Next up, discussion on implementation of vehicle registration fee. Councilmember Esslinger.
Thank you again, Mayor. I'll make this short. Mr. Roloff, this is just kind of an informational thing. When we did pass the wheel tax, it was, I think the implementation date was 1st of June or July. People had been going there kind of shortly thereafter and were charged the fee. So they didn't quite understand why they're getting charged that. So can you help me out, help the public out on, so it's there now and moving forward and you're going to be charged with it? Does it matter when your not your license, but your plate is up? August, September, October, November, December, So help us out here.
Sure, I think I'm going to defer to Finance Director Kalmus to provide this, because she had some interactions with the Department of Motor Vehicles about this issue.
Perfect.
So the implementation date was, the council approved it as of July 1st of 2024. That has not changed. What I think the confusing part is the average citizen was thinking July 1st, that means July sticker. Department of Transportation explained to me that the June stickers are from July, so the June sticker that individuals would have received last year, they're effective from July 1st of 2023 through June 30th of 2024. So that June sticker that you're paying for in May or June is not effective until July 1st, which is why it has the $35 implementation fee for the vehicle registration fee. So I think that's where the confusion comes in, is they're getting the postcard in May for that June sticker, and they're not realizing it's not effective until July 1st, if that makes sense. Because if you still have that June 2023 sticker, you're not going to get pulled over for not renewing your sticker until July.
So if you have a May sticker, well, today's May, whatever, 4/15, whatever it is. So if you, from now until June 1st, there will be no fee if you have a May, if your license, or your plate is up at the end of May. However, starting June 1, then that's the catch date. Is that correct?
Correct. The problem is that the Department of Transportation mails them out in May. And I think they have a due date or payment day, is what I've been told, that it has to be paid in June. I've been getting a lot of complaints that why do I have to pay for it if it's not effective until? We can't control what the Department of Transportation mails it. We can't control when they say it's due, their payment, but they're telling us that those June stickers, even though they want payment, and they're mailing it in May and they want payment in June, it's not effective until July 1st. So with the city saying our effective date is July 1st, that's why the $35 fee is on there.
Okay.
Councilmember Fulton.
So just to clarify, this is in DMV's hands now, and there's nothing we can do at this point, because I've heard this from a number of people with a lot of confusion saying, hey, this was supposed to take effect in July, why am I essentially being charged early? So I appreciate your explanation. I'll be passing that back to constituents. Thank you.
I wanted to, since Councilmember Esslinger put this on the agenda, I want to make you aware of something that technically doesn't directly involve you, but I think you need to be aware of it. We had factored in the possibility that people would get this notice from the DMV that are not residents of the city of Oshkosh. And we knew that because Ms. Kalmus's previous position in Grand Chute, when Appleton had implemented its vehicle registration fee, a good number of Grand Chute residents started to get it because nobody was paying attention to the card that says your vehicle's kept in our case, County of Winnebago, City of Oshkosh. If you live in the town of Black Wolf and you haven't paid attention to that, which you probably haven't for years because it had no impact until we implemented the fee. We're starting to get some calls, and I actually talked to Representative Schra, and he also got some calls from residents in the town of Black Wolf and their card says, you're in the Winnebago County, City of Oshkosh. And it's like, you need to check with the DMV. So if you get any non-resident approaching you, they need to contact the DMV. And Ms. Kalmus, when you were experiencing that in Grand Chute, is that pretty much what the advice was?
Mm-hmm. Yes, we had I'm assuming the surrounding municipalities would do the same thing that Grand Chute did. We did a huge education piece saying you have a City of Appleton zip code, double check your registration card, make sure you're not paying the City of Appleton fee. I'm assuming the surrounding municipalities will be doing the same thing for Oshkosh. So that's the thing is Oshkosh can't do anything about it. They have to contact the DMV.
So you may get a call about that. I just wanted you to hear it, even though technically it's not in your jurisdiction, but that doesn't prevent people from calling you, so I thought I'd let you know.
To clarify, that's because it's based upon the DMV information that they have that was supplied when that person registered that vehicle, nothing we have supplied.
Correct.
Thank you.
And I think a lot of times that goes off of that zip code until it's corrected.
You know, think sometimes it's the person that sold you the car. So sometimes the accuracy is based on a car salesman. I'm not saying anything begrudgingly about car salespeople, but they got more important things than what city you live in at the time. It's just a reality.
Any other questions on this? Good discussion. Next up, priorities for ARPA grant applications. City Manager.
Thank you. I know there are a couple people who stuck around, and out of courtesy to them, I'm just going to give a little brief overview. I put a memo into your packet, and you recall that at the last meeting, I had given you a rundown of what I called categories of topics that were in the different applications. And honestly, I didn't get a lot of feedback, so I'm coming back again. And staff and I met that are going through applications, and I shared with you a point system that we had developed. And as we looked at it, the point system has validity, but it really is more about the quality of the application and certain aspects, but nothing's weighted about the specific area of the nature of the application. And that was troubling to me because it didn't provide any direction to staff about evaluating these. So what I had staff do, and I was part of this process, is we took a look at several things. Our strategic plan, both the one that is currently in place as well as the one that you'll be seeing soon. So I'm giving you a little preview of that. Included in that is input that the council had seen from the focus group that we held, about 20 residents that gave us input on things that they thought were important. And there were some emerging issues that were discussed that weren't necessarily in the strategic plan, but they certainly warranted discussion. And then the council has given me annual goals as part of my review, especially for the new council members. As part of my annual review, the council gives me some goals, and they would like you to work on those things. Taking those 3 areas of input and identifying some of the common themes, there were 4 common themes that I saw. And if that is what's developing from the input from council, input from the public, and the council's direction to me specifically, it seemed that 4 priorities emerged from this list. And you've got this list, it's got about 20 to 30 items. But some of the common themes were housing, particularly affordable housing, and you just saw a presentation from Ms. Nyforth and her staff, and the council is very sensitive to that issue. Homelessness, I don't think we need to talk much more about that. That has been an issue that has been out there. Child care capacity was probably one that isn't specifically in our strategic plan, but as we've talked about workforce, the next version of the strategic plan is talking about child care as a challenge, as an impediment to economic development, to work, people being employed. And then DEI, underrepresented populations. That is something that council has given me as a goal to work on more. And the number of applications also bore that out. Overwhelmingly, the largest number of applications had a DEI type of component. Even though we only identified 7 under diversity, there were a lot more than that, especially when you blend in underserved populations. Maybe they didn't use the term diversity, but they certainly talked about that, but underrepresented populations. So just so you know, since there was a little bit of dead time during the lengthy discussion about the liquor license, I made a copy of this memo and shared it with some of the folks that were here because I thought it was fair to them. They sticking around that long, they deserved a copy of the memo so that it wasn't spent on them. So they've had a chance to look at it. So and they may have some input. And I was talking with them a little bit, and I know they have some input. But I wanted to point out that in the memo, this is not to suggest that we're not other priorities. As this list shows, there were a lot of other priorities. But given the scoring system about the quality of the applications, that wasn't enough to sort it out. And if we're going to sort this out, we need to, I'm going to need some direction from council we'd like you to focus on some of these areas. These are the ones that I think most closely represent a composite of those areas: strategic plan, focus group input, and your goals to meet. So that's why I'm making those recommendations. So with that, I mean, technically this section of the agenda does have public input, and I know a couple folks have input, so I'll leave it up to council.
And actually, TJ Hobbs had registered to speak on this, and I believe, TJ, you would still like to share some commentary? Yeah. The floor is yours. Yep, the floor is yours. You had registered.
I think TJ didn't realize it was going to take that long, so she had time to lap us.
We communicated a little bit. We're good.
Yeah, as I apologize separately to a couple of you, I want to apologize to everybody for earlier. I realized as I was walking to the car that was my mistake, and that I thank you for having me back. I misunderstood what was happening as it was happening. I've been out of local government just a touch too long. But I wrote up a statement today, and I've amended it a couple times as I keep learning more and learning more. I don't feel like this, even now has been as transparent as it should have been. And I guess my first question, even before I get into my statement, is, why is City Council not seeing those 51 applications? I don't know if Mark wants to answer that now or later, but I would love for y'all to see them, and I would imagine you also would love to see them, because I'm wondering, like, who picked the 3 words for each application that may or may not be diversity. Like, what does that mean? I feel like every one of us who applied did so with the understanding that this was going to be publicly known what we wrote down, and that it's public record, and that we're okay with everybody reading it. I want you all to get a chance to review all 51 applications so that you can then provide informed input that isn't just a feeling or a guess. And I think that we owe that to the 51 applicants. I think that is a way that we can make an informed decision as a community of folks who have been elected to make those decisions. And I don't think if you got into city government you're afraid of a little bit of reading. I think you guys signed up for that. So that in short, that's a part of it. That's a big ask I have. I was going to ask for DEI committee to have access to all 51 of those, but they're not meeting right now. But when they were meeting, they made sure to get their 2 recommendations in. And as I said before, I'm part of Oshkosh Pride. I want to be very transparent about that. Our group applied. I'm not just here for that, though. I'm here, again, on the sake of it. It's going to be good news no matter who gets that money. There's 51 orgs that are doing great work for the city of Oshkosh. And I just want them all to have a fair shot of getting reviewed. But I do want us to reference Resolution 20-498, which wasn't mentioned, but almost was, in the paper y'all received. I think you guys got reference to 21-498, which I guess came right after that. But the previous resolution made clear consideration should be given to any equity concerns voiced by the City Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. So that being said, there's been some back and forth about, we're not going to honor the 2 or consider the 2 recommendations made by the DEI committee because they, shouldn't have made such specific recommendations. They should have been more broad. And while that may or may not, be the case, like it is the case in that they're supposed to make broad recommendations and specific recommendations, is my understanding. So they did what they were supposed to do, and they made 2 specific recommendations. The 2 folks, it was SEPO and Oshkosh Pride that were recommended by the DEI committee. They were, at the same time, I want them to receive the consideration that they were deserved and promised in that resolution, but I still stand by, I want y'all to review all 51 because, but nowhere in here did I see special consideration given to the Resolution 20. And I just, I don't think that's following the resolution that was passed, and I feel like it's important that we do that. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Council, city manager would like some direction on how to best move forward. Councilmember Esslinger.
Thank you, Mayor. I saw this coming a mile away. In fact, I think I talked about this at the previous council meeting. Again, years ago, when we had community development block grant funds, they were brought forward to community development department, and the council made decisions on where that money went to. And it made for a very ugly process because council members had to make a decision on where that money went. And as we all know, there's more people that want the money than we have money. That's the way it goes. I don't like the city manager having to make decisions with this. This is, and I'm not saying he can't, but I'm kind of sticking up for him here. He's not elected to do this. While I understand and I respect his opinion on where this should go, if he wants to make recommendations, I would respect that, and I think that would be very, very beneficial. This is a once-in-a-lifetime event here where we have this money that's come forward to spend, but this is why we get elected. These are the decisions that we have to make, and I can guarantee you there's going to be someone that's going to be mad because you made the decision that you did, but that's what we sign up for. I don't think this should go to any of the committees that we have. It's going to be the same thing. You know, why did the city manager do this? You know, why did he make this decision? This committee says that, the other committee says this. It just creates way too much of a mess. So, Mr. Mayor, I think that the council needs to tackle this. Whether we have workshops on this, meetings outside of council time where we get this information, review it, come up with our own process, but the buck has to stop at this council, not at the city manager's desk. Thank you.
Councilmember Flom.
I would agree. As members of council, these are the choices that we are elected to make, and we bear the consequences of the choices that we do make. So I would like to at least see the scores for the applications. And to Councilmember Esslinger's point, if we could have some sort of workshop, potentially reviewing these options to give you some more direction, Mark. If you were to make recommendations yourself, I would trust the decisions that you make. But at the same time, I do think that the buck does stop with council. And so I would like to take a look at those so we can give you a little bit more direction about where we would like to go with these.
Councilmember Nichols.
Thanks. I agree with council members Esslinger and Flom here. I know that we've all talked a lot about transparency just as we've been sitting here and before. And so I'm curious from city manager, I guess, what is the status of these applications being public? Is there an intention to make them public? And then I guess I agree that your recommendation is absolutely something that we would like to see. But what would the process look like to ensure that we have adequate amount of information to review the applications that maybe you are not bringing to us?
Technically, every application is public record. And if somebody demanded a copy of it, I would be obligated by law to provide that. I have not spent a great deal of time promoting that, only because out of respect for the different organizations. And I was made, the first go-around with these, the newspaper asked me that very question, and I said, I would ask that respectfully that you not ask me, because I don't want to embarrass any organization that would make it look like we were bad-mouthing their organization. There are so many good applications in the first round, and there's a lot of good applications in this round as well. The council ultimately makes the decision. The process has been similar to what we do with CDBG. The council awards them based on the recommendations of staff, and that's been my intent. The purpose of this memo was to say, I need some direction from council so I can winnow these down, because otherwise it's going to be very difficult. I can share all of this information because it is a public record. I don't know if this council, and that's going to be up to you, do you want to go through the process that staff has been going through? And granted, we've got a lot of, it's our full-time job, but we have other responsibilities. This has taken a lot longer because of 51 applications. I guarantee you that if you go through that process, you're going to have a parade of people here. And I'll tell you that probably about 49 of the 51 are going to be really good applications. If that's what you want to do, I just forewarn you that be careful what you ask for. But I'm prepared if that's what the council wants to do. But I think it would be best if you gave me some general direction. I can do that, and it's 3 inches. The application file is 3 inches thick. I'm happy to share it with anyone, especially the council. But out of respect for your time and the process, I think you want me to be that person that reviews it with staff, makes a recommendation, and I have to be held accountable for those things, but eventually, the process will be more thorough if I go through it rather than we do it because every review is going to have to be done at a public meeting, and that'll be, if that's the time you want to invest in it, that's certainly the council's prerogative, just not my recommendation.
Councilmember Bulow.
I'm just going to say it before Mayor Mugerauer can, that this hasn't been the process that we've used for any of these other applications moving forward up until now. I disagree with Councilmember Esslinger. I do really do want DEI's input on it. I don't know how to make that happen. I don't know the right levers to pull. I don't know how to, I'm not going to get into the weeds of how we score those. I don't think that is, I don't think that's my job. I think we have a council manager government, and I do think that we are liable to our voters and the pressures that they're going to put on, and you know, I do respect that, the both goods and bads of that, but it's going to lead to lobbying from people that know me, lobbying to people that know Floam, you know, and all the rest of us. This is why we have a city manager and a city staff to score these, rank these. So I'm going to go there. The issue that I do see, and I just want to put it on the table, is it's ultimately going to be up to us to accept your recommendations, and that's going to be almost impossible without knowing what else we could have chosen. You know, it's like going to a restaurant in here, do you want this burger? Well, what else is on the menu? But if the chef recommends the burger, guess what? I'm going to get the burger. So out of deference for the process that we've had up until now, I don't believe that we should be reviewing all 51, but I do want you to, in any way you can, solicit input from the DEI committee and as many diverse voices as you can in that, because there's a lot of very interesting projects, I'm sure.
Councilmember Larson.
I agree with most of that, and to all the points made, I mean, maybe for me, the right compromise is Mark is asking for guidance, and there's 4 categories in this memo. I agree that those are 4 important categories, and we're probably on the right track with regards to all kinds of different things, which is great. To the point, a couple people have made DEI as one of those categories, which is awesome, so we addressed that there, whether they read them all or not, as maybe per ordinance at one point in time, I don't know, but at least that gives that consideration. I would still love to be able to see all of them once we get to that point, so that if there are outliers, that, I mean, more people looking at them is better. But I think everybody's saying we value the recommendation and the process. And for me, these 4 categories is a great place to start.
Anybody else? Councilmember Stevenson.
I like the 4 categories. I think if you're looking for recommendations on where you should be honing your recommendation, it should be out of those 4 categories. I do like you guys giving us recommendations. That's why we have staff. If council had to review every single application, every single thing that city went through, it would take an immense amount of time, and we would not have staff then. We would just look at every site plan. We would look at, that's not the way government works. So I do really want you guys to look at them. I think if other council members want to take a look at the entirety of the applications, and maybe I'll take a peek too. I mean, they're certainly allowed to ask you, right? You said they're public.
They're public record.
But I don't think us sitting up here and going through 51 applications is the answer to that. I think that's going to be very messy. I think that's going to do a huge disservice to the applicants. I think trying to keep this as unbiased as possible, we give you direction here, and then trying to have us make a good decision is the way to do this.
Both of you have spoken already, right? Yep. No, keep them there, that's fine. I'm just going to go quick ahead of you. Okay. I'm going to keep it bullet pointed and short. The 4 categories you've laid out are appropriate. They fit in with our strategic plan. They fit in with the goals that we have described for you, or that council has for the last 2 years, at least. Clearing up a few points. One, it was never the intention that the applications would go to DEI. That was not how 2040-98 was written. Consideration should be given to equity concerns voiced by the City Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. The committee was charged then with that they should provide direction to us, because they only advise us on equity concerns, that in essence, dollars should be given to, spaces that do this or ideas that do that. It was not the intention that one body, an advisory body, would review all applications. It would be a rookie mistake for us to go through the beauty pageant process of interviewing all 51 applicants up here on camera. I understand the keyword of transparency here. That's not what this is about. It's about what's doing best for the community as a whole, and doing a beauty pageant up here is not that. It's disrespectful, actually, because what will happen will be pet projects from those who align. And it'll be, my group is this, and my group is that, and I'm a part of this group, so I want this, and I'm going to advocate for this, and I'm going to shill for that, and I'm going to try to play that game. And we don't do that at local government. That happens at Madison, that happens in Washington. We don't do that here. So it would be a rookie mistake to suggest that we should go through application by application up here. Because if that was the case, then I'd be advocating that I put, Mark, put my favorite 5 at the top, because we're going to vote on those first. Right? So, and then all of a sudden we get to 50 and it's like, oh, we ran out of money, but I really like you, so now what? That it just doesn't work. That's not how effective government works. Multiple times this evening we have heard, I trust your opinion, but at some point you should listen to them. I'm going to leave it at that. Councilmember Flom, followed by Deputy Mayor Bulow.
Just like to follow up, in terms of the beauty pageant process, I'm not necessarily advocating for that. I think if we are going to have some sort of open forum about looking at the recommendations that the city manager has, if we can take a look at the 4, I would at least like the opportunity to have those resources and to look at those. I'm not saying that we need to drag council through the entire show, but I think if individual council members want to have the opportunity to look at these items, that they should be able to have those. And then on top of that, the scores that the city staff assign them. I understand that a beauty pageant process can be messy and will be messy and will, result in a lot of just ill content and a lot of issues going forward. However, I think if we are going to try to narrow this down, if the city manager wants to take a look at the 4 categories and hand them back to us, but I would like the opportunity to at least look at, and other council members can look at these applications. So I understand and respect the mayor's point. I just think it's important that council has the opportunity to observe these items if they would like to.
Deputy Mayor, followed by Councilmember Nichols.
I just wanted to point out that we spent over an hour tonight discussing the application of one candidate on a different issue, and just how many bathroom breaks it would take to discuss 51 of these applications.
Councilmember Nichols, followed by Councilmember Esslinger.
And I just want to clarify that I didn't hear anyone suggest that we bring 51 people into this room and have them pitted against each other for funds. I think that in order for this council to say to someone with a straight face why their application wasn't chosen is because the city manager never presented your application to us is the wrong answer. I think that us having all of the applications, having the opportunity to review the applications and then review the recommendations in light of all of them will allow us to ask targeted questions. And to your point about pet projects, Mayor, everyone has passions and interests and people in the community that they support, and I think that's why there's 7 of us, so that we can support a very diverse group of interests in our community. I think what's important to remember is that all of us represent all of those groups as well. So it's also important to remember that the staff also have those groups in the community that they would support over other groups. And so this will allow us, by having the opportunity to review these applications as well as the recommendations, to ensure that pet projects at the staff level and pet projects at the council level, as you called them, aren't winning over others. Thanks.
Councilmember Esslinger.
Thank you. Well, I think Councilmember Nichols and Flom pretty much hit it out of the park with their comments. I never said anything about interviewing anyone, so I don't know where that came from. The interviewing process for me is the application. That's the time that the individuals are giving it their best shot. Come forward and with their application, I review it along with 6 other council members, and you make a decision what you think is best for the city. And of course, we're all going to have different opinions on that. This is government, ladies and gentlemen. This is how it works. And if you're going to sit here and say that someone's going to pick their favorite, you shouldn't be up here. You should be gone. And I hope that the residents, if they thought that a councilman was picking their favorites, would never vote for that person again. So, here again, we're trying to make a mountain out of a molehill. You sign up for the job. It's a difficult job. People put in their application. They give it their best shot. We make a determination. Mr. Roloff has spent time with us, and again, I appreciate that and I respect that. But these are, I don't know, how much money is left? A couple $1 million? I mean, a couple million. That's a lot of money. And so let's do our job and get it done. Don't pick your favorites. Review the applications, and we'll have that conversation. Will it take time? You better believe it will. That's what you signed up for.
Do you have some direction?
I'm going to say something and see if I can get a general consensus. I think there's a general consensus that you'd like to see them. And if you'd like to see them sooner rather than later is better. It's a lot of reading. I would suggest that it's an electronic copy, and I would say, out of respect to everybody, what I'll do is I'll have staff put it on the website right up front so that council can access it, the public can access it. But I'm also hearing that the council still wants recommendations from me, and it's a group of staff members, and in order to prevent them from getting accosted in grocery stores and whatnot, I'll get accosted in the grocery store, and that's okay. But out of respect for them, I'll provide the recommendations, because ultimately the recommendations will come from me. I will also give you the scores, the preliminary scores, so you can see that. And I gave you the criteria a while back, but I'll give it to you again so you've got it. And that, again, after my review of all the applications, the scoring system really is more about the quality of the application, which is why I went this way. What I plan to do is focus on these 4 priority areas. The council still may disagree with that, and that I understand that that's always council's prerogative. But this only knocks out about 17 of 51 applications. We still got 33 applications that meet these categories. So, but what it does is it takes the scores, and then we start digging deeper. And we can dig deeper with that narrowing of it, and I feel confident we can give that. If the council would like DEI to look at it, I would suggest that, number 1, we probably need a special DEI committee meeting, and I'd like some feedback from the council on that issue, because the regular DEI committee meeting for May is Memorial Day, so we'd have to reschedule it. But if you want the DEI committee to weigh in on the equity concerns as identified in the resolution, then I would say, we probably need to call a special meeting of the committee. The committee can look at the applications because they'll be online, but I don't think it was ever the intent, whoever said it, it was never the intent of the DEI committee to review the individual applications. But they have every prerogative to look at them, so we can make that available to them. But if they want to address some concerns, and, one of the areas was DEI underrepresented populations. They want to dig deeper and make some additional recommendations over and above that. That's appropriate, because those are, I think you could put them under the category of equity concerns, and I appreciate the feedback on that. So, but I'll take your direction on that one, because there were a couple comments, and I'm not sure if I felt the vibe on which way on that one. But did I catch the vibe pretty much on everything else? Yes. Generally, okay. So referring to DEI, I'll defer to council and just give me some direction on that.
I haven't gotten a DEI committee meeting yet, and I'm looking forward to it. And I'll start with the first one being a special if we need to,
Yeah.
you know, if they're going to be public, I think that's very valuable to have diverse opinions, look at them, and just give a little bit of feedback to you.
Councilmember Nichols.
I think, I agree with what's been said up here, that I don't think the intention was the DE&I committee, and I wasn't here when these were decided, but I don't think the intention was the DEI committee would review every application, but certainly if they're public, I would encourage people to go look at them. I think that's the point of making something like this public. I do think that it would be helpful, not just for this process, but for us as a community to know what clear concerns the DEI committee, those who've been appointed, have. And then we can target that committee or those concerns towards these applications. But we can also do that as we're talking generally as a community.
Okay, I appreciate the input. Great discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up, public information related to the reevaluation process.
Nice, easy one to end on.
Nobody's talking about this at all.
Yeah, let's get it, yeah. Okay. Jody St. Charles, our city assessor, is here. This is her first reval, so be kind to her. This is my fifth, so you don't have to be as kind to me. But I can tell you that the process of revaluation, with probably the exception of 2017, has always been this contentious and controversial. There's a great deal of misunderstanding. And what I'd like to do before we even get started is to go over a couple things, and then Ms. St. Charles can go through the process that the assessor's office goes through. But there's a video, and I'm not sure if everybody had a chance to see it. It's from a city in Alberta, Canada. Part of the point is that this is not just an Oshkosh, Wisconsin, or even an American. Any place in the world that does property taxes wrestles with this issue. It's a 4-minute video, and I think it'd be worth it. And Jake, if you could pop it in there.
I want to explain to you how assessment and taxation work. Let's start off by creating a small town with only 3 houses. Each house is different and has a different value. The first house has a market value of $200,000. The second house has a value of $250,000. The third house is valued at $350,000. The city supplies services, and the money to pay for these services is recovered through property taxation. Let's imagine that the town needs to collect $1,200 to pay for these services. To calculate the tax rate, you divide the cost to provide services by the total assessed value of all the properties in the town. This establishes a tax rate. Now, to calculate how much tax each home pays, we multiply the tax rate by the assessment. As you can see, the first house would pay $300, the second home would pay $375, and the highest valued home would pay $525. Let's summarize what we've covered so far. 1. Assessment places a market value on each property. 2. The total assessment is used to calculate the tax rate. 3. Taxes pay for the cost of city services, like roads, fire protection, snow removal, parks, etc. Let's imagine that another year has passed and that property values have increased by 4%. Now, let's imagine that the cost of providing services has remained the same, $1,200. The tax rate is the cost of services divided by the total assessment. The result is that all owners still pay the same tax as before because the cost of services has not changed. Let's summarize what we've covered so far. 1. Assessment increase does not necessarily mean more taxes are collected. 2. If all assessments go up equally, everyone pays the same as long as the cost of services stays the same. Now, let's imagine another year passed and values did not increase at the same rate. Home 1 remained at the same value, $208,000. Home 2 increased by 1%, $262,600. And Home 3 increased 3%, $374,920. The cost of services stayed the same at $1,200. Here's the math. $1,200 divided by the new assessment total equals the new tax rate. The net effect of the new values sees House 1 paying less tax and the house that went up 3% paying a higher proportionate share. If all assessments do not go up equally, there's a redistribution of the tax. However, the total tax collected remains the same. What happens if the cost of services goes up? Let's do the math. Services now cost $1,400. The result is a different tax rate. As you can see, an increase in service cost results in a tax increase. But suppose that the cost of services went up, but also one more home was now built in the town and it was worth $300,000. The new total assessment is now $1,145,520. This results in a new tax rate. The new house now helps pay for the cost of services, and the result is that everyone pays less. This is a hypothetical representation of how the process works. The key points are: 1, total assessment value is used to calculate tax rates. 2, an increase in property value does not always mean an increase in taxes. 3, new construction helps pay the overall tax burden. 4, taxes are based on the cost of providing services that citizens want and need. And that explains how assessment and taxation works.
Ms. St. Charles, just go over a few facts and figures regarding the recent revaluation process. Go ahead, Jody.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and members of the Common Council. My name is Jody St. Charles, your friendly neighborhood tax assessor. I would like to give a special shout out and thank you to my team down in the Assessment Services Division on the second floor, fielding several calls, emails, and visits to our counter. Definitely understand and appreciate the concerns around this process, so thank you for having us here tonight to share more information. The last revaluation in the city of Oshkosh was back in 2017. What seems like a few short years, the area has had heavy year-over-year increases, and so the values people are seeing are quite shocking. We understand that and appreciate the concern. A common misconception is that whatever percent of increase is listed on the notice of assessment is the amount that one's tax bill will increase. So obviously that is not the case, and we're happy to share that information here. The assessed value of a property and a tax rate are related but not the same, similar to the fields of law and philosophy. We sent out a total of 19,000 plus notices of changed assessment to residential property owners. So this is not just one particular area, one person being targeted. People see that high number, on average 75%, and get gravely concerned. But it's happening to the whole city at the same time. Generally speaking, that means the mill rate, the city's portion, will drop. As we're aware, there's a combined mill rate that also includes other entities, the county, the school district, and the tech college as well. So we do apologize for any chance that that was misconstrued. We do our best to share accurate information. It's been several hundred of phone calls and about 100 people visiting the counter downstairs. For more background on the ratio process, the city received our first notice of non-compliance from the state. What that means is that we have to do this process. We no longer can wait. If we were to wait, that means that the state would step in and do the process for us. It would probably cost us more, and we would lose local control over the process. The ratio background is at 2017, when the last reval was completed, we were at 98% level of assessment out of 100. In 2018, it dropped to 94%. 2019 dropped to 92%. In 2020, it dropped into the 80s, 88%. That is outside of the 10% range between assessed and market value, which would trigger the clock of us needing to be within compliance once within 5-year period per the state. 2021, obviously there were a lot of things happening in the time of COVID. no one was sure if this was a temporary or permanent state of being. If everyone can recall at that time, there were a lot of unknowns. 2022 dropped down to 74%. And the revaluation planning begun at that point. Technically speaking, any year that's not a revaluation year is a maintenance year. So assessors' offices are generally always preparing for a revaluation because those are the times when you have the chance to get the data updates more frequently in the system. 2023, the percentage dropped down to 69%. So this process, doing the revaluation in 2024, should bring us back closer to that 100%. It's very hard to get exactly 100, but I know a few friends who've made that happen, so fingers crossed, maybe we'll get there. We have a pie chart available. So what's happening is the assessed property value pie is changing. It's growing from a total assessed value citywide of about 4.1 billion up to about 6.1 billion. But important to note is if you look at the gray section, the residential portion of it, it is now a larger slice of the overall pie. So because of the residential value outpacing the commercial value, what this means is that unfortunately the residential property owners are going to be picking up more of the taxes from what commercial has been carrying. And there's nothing that anybody can do about that. There is no state law protections for residential property owners by the state in this manner. It looks like in 2023, only 27% of the almost 2,000 municipalities in the state of Wisconsin are in compliance due to the rate of change in the economic conditions. What can we say? Wisconsin has a hot real estate market. People like our recreation, especially the Oshkosh area, making several top of the country list. So this is a hard burden to bear for all of us, but it's just the reality of the situation. I'm happy to field any further questions anyone may have at this time.
I think Councilmember Flom hit it.
Thank you. So I want to start, I have a number of things to cover, but I want to start with thanking you, Jody. I've been CC'd on a few emails with you from constituents, and you lay everything out very clearly, and I really appreciate that. I can understand that it is a rather tough time for you in your office right now because you are going through a lot of these things. A lot of people have a lot of questions, they have a lot of concerns, they have a lot of frustration, so I do empathize with that. One of the things that I would like to talk about is I understand that this is a process that we cannot avoid. The one concern that I had was the communication issue, because I feel that a lot of phone calls and emails from constituents saying, do I have to pay, my valuation went up 75%. Does that mean I have to pay 75% more in property taxes? And trying to, explain that process to people and saying, no, that's not quite, we need to set the mill rate and everything. That's something that is, done over and over and over again. And I guess for the future, for the next revaluation process of going out to the neighborhood associations, I don't know if you did or not, and saying, hey, this is what we're doing. This is what we're required to do by state law. Here's what's going to happen. Here's what you guys can expect. That would be something that I would like to see in the future. I'm not saying that you guys did a bad job. I'm just saying that, for next time. And then a couple of other things, some other items that I would like to talk about. I know this kind of links back to the housing argument, that we need to have a housing first policy where we are expanding that pie. I mean, seeing the burden shift more to residential does concern me. And I think that's something that this council needs to keep in mind when we set our mill rate and we set our budget and we set all that later this year, to understand that, yes, residential properties are going to bear more of this burden and people are not going to like that, so we need to be responsible about that. One question that I have is protections for seniors, and in terms of those property taxes, I know we're tied to net new construction about that, but for people who are on fixed income, does Wisconsin have any law regarding protections in certain property tax raises for seniors and folks who are on fixed income? I fielded a few questions about those.
No, the Wisconsin Constitution has what's called a uniformity clause.
Okay.
And that prohibits those types of things from taking place in Wisconsin. class of properties have to be equal. We are so strict on that. You may recall that about 10 years ago or so, the legislature wanted to increase the lottery tax credit just for residences, and they had to get a state constitutional amendment to allow that to happen because that violated the uniformity clause. So for senior citizens, for housing under a value, there are no exceptions under that. We're required to do it based on real estate value and nothing else. It wasn't noticed so much in 2017 because actually there was a slight shift, I believe, towards commercial, and it was because the values didn't change much. It was largely unnoticed. And I respect the suggestions about doing a better job. And I always say, communication is a nonstop education effort. But frankly, until people get the notice, they're not paying attention.
I understand.
I had a great presentation with the Healthy Neighborhoods group last night. All of the captains of all the neighborhood associations, and they were like, yep, we understand. Now, of course they do. They're a very active group. They read everything we put out, and they had some questions. So one of the things that I thought was important to point out, and Jake, if you could put up the slide that you have on the laptop by Jody's Diaz spot, it's what's the mill rate? Because the concern is that if we don't change the mill rate, the total taxes needed can be, there's a perception that the council can increase it by whatever amount they want. Short answer is you can't, even if you wanted to. Number one, we have levy limits that have been adopted. Now, we have been enjoying, and I use that term loosely, we've been enjoying the fact that we have not been under strict levy limits because of some exemptions that we're enjoying that frankly are running out. Within the next 3 to 5 years, we're probably going to run out of that, and it will be solely based on net new construction. But I can tell you that the levy has been increasing by about 3 to 4%. And that has been through council direction. And normally, I go to council with that in August. We kind of give a preliminary figure about what you can expect in terms of wages and benefits, and we go through this whole process. Jake, if you go back to the screen, because I think it's important. The total assessed value is going to go up on an average of 50%, but the average is 30% estimated on the commercial side and 75% on the residential side. That's the concern that Jody pointed out. The pie is increasing for residential. So if the council did exactly the direction they gave me last year, where council said, cap it at 4%, whether you do it in August or whether you do it now, if it will give the public some solace that it's not going to increase their taxes because of the levy, the council will exercise that restraint. If you want to demonstrate that restraint earlier than later, we'll go into the budget season and we'll know exactly what you've given us, regardless of what we come back with. We do have some labor contracts that have been approved. So we got a pretty good idea where we're going. So we're not rolling the dice by any stretch of the imagination. All you're doing is giving us some direction earlier rather than later. That means that with the assessed value going up as much as it is, and you put a strict cap direction to staff on the levy, the mill rate will drop. So let's say it's 4%. The average increase will be 4%, but that's only the average. It is going to shift, and residences will pay a slightly higher amount. And I say slightly, what is that? I don't know. I've heard somebody say their assessment doubled 100%. I've heard somebody say there was one up 40%. The person who told me 40%, it's under the 50% average, they very likely could see it go down. Alternatively, the person with 100%, they're going to see their share go up. And I can't tell you exactly what, but it's going up, and that's based on that formula. So if the council wants to give me direction, and I wouldn't do it tonight because the city attorney wouldn't be happy with me. But if you want me to put on the next agenda that you give me a hard cap, that's what we'll go into budget for, so at least we can provide that degree of comfort to people that it won't be taking gross advantage of an increase in rates. The average increase will be X percent, and I would say 4 because that's been the average. You can cut it later, you can add it later, that will, it's always council's prerogative on that.
Sure, and I understand that, and I think it's just, a good note for us that there's what we can control and what we can't control. We can't control this process, we can't control, the tax rates for the county, the school district, and the tech college system. However, what we can do is mind our own backyard. And so when we go into this budgeting process, to keep that in mind, that everything is more expensive, people are paying more for many, many things, rents are going up, mortgages are going up, it's a high cost of borrowing right now. So if we can do our part in that, that's something I would like us to see when we do give you direction for budget time. But I very much appreciate your explanation of that, and I also very much appreciate the graphics that you've been putting up on social media about the mill rate, about the facts versus the fictions. I very much think that's good to share with people. I've shared that with constituents, and so I very much appreciate it. So thank you.
Councilmember Nichols.
Yeah, thanks. Jody and the city staff, you all should be commended for how much you have communicated. I know it's not easy news to give and then also educate people at the same time, because tensions are high as you're trying to educate. That's not a great combination. Something, and it's not for us to talk about tonight at 9:35, but something I would like to explore as a city is, rather than waiting for us to hit the 10% mark, having more regular revaluation so that people are building that expectation, they're building that reflex, and then we are getting, more frequent updates. I don't know. I mean, I've lived in a city where we were revalued every 3 years. People knew what to expect, they knew when to expect it, and they knew how to dispute it. But I think that's something we can take away as maybe a longer-term conversation. But I think what might be helpful for anybody that's watching this is to understand, if they do have questions or if they would like to dispute their numbers, where do they go?
Thank you for sharing that. I'd like to comment on the first point first. Definitely, every municipality is a bit different. On average, it's 7 years triggers, but some do it on a more regular basis. But do keep in mind that in those instances, it would be a higher staff workload and a higher cost to the taxpayers for the revaluation process. And then, yes, we do encourage all property owners to please contact us if they do have concerns about their value. We're happy to share information about how their assessed value was determined, go over the comparable or recent sales and similar property types, share more about what we can about tax rates. We have had some great conversations, and really appreciate the people that take the time to contact our office or come to City Hall to speak with us. If they prefer to schedule an appointment with their area appraiser, that's also an option. Just contact us.
Excellent, good questions. Couple brief questions myself. Last re-eval was 2017. When was the one before that?
2005.
2005. And keep in mind, between 8 and 11, we had a housing crisis, a bubble, and everything.
Right.
Values plummeted.
We were close to 90, and then we went actually up over to 103.
Well over 100%.
So we started to reverse it, and it took until 2017.
And the reason I bring that up is because I know there's thought or question within the community, and just want to make sure it's clear. This wasn't a surprise to city staff or any previous council members. We've been talking about this for at least the last 4 years. I know many people don't watch the budget process, but you can go back and in every part of every budget process, this topic was brought up on, we will have to reevaluate, the property assessments very soon. It was a deliberate decision because, as City Manager Roloff noted, between 20 to 21, we didn't know what was going on, and we didn't know how we were going to come out of that. So to do it, and then all of a sudden things plummet, well, that's not really fair either. So we had the window of time. This was that window of time. Let's run it. Let's see what happens. This was the first official notice, but we've known for years that this was coming. And those property values have gone up drastically since 2017, especially on the residential side. So a good reminder in there, the one bullet point that doesn't get talked about enough, we talked about it a little bit, but new development helps reduce the tax rate. So I'm going to pick on Lake Butamore Drive because that's the biggest, shiniest object of recent. But when you're talking a nearly $80 to $100 million housing development, by the time it's all said and done, that helps pay down the tax rate for everybody else. So every multifamily thing that people rail against, it's also helping reduce or at least hold the line on their tax rates. And then the appeal process, that was a good question to bring up. We got copied in on a message. I know I did it via email. I wanted to praise you on how you handled the interactions. I applaud that. I thought it was well done, very professional, but also very easy to understand. And to be able to provide comparables to people, because many folks, unless they're in the housing industry or have looked at a house to buy or sell, they may not know what their house is worth. They maybe haven't had to have a reappraisal because they haven't had to take out a loan recently. So being able to provide comparables to say, here's what's like your property and here's what it sold for recently, it confirms the valuation then. So wanted to just point those out and say good work so far and on the communication side. So
Thank you. We really appreciate that.
Councilmember Esslinger.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. Jody, thank you to you and your staff for throwing a lot of water on a large fire. And, as a real estate agent, I can tell you that I've listed and sold some homes, and these values, I looked at mine as fairly accurate. I disagree with it a little bit, but I've looked at some others, and people have called me, and they told me the value, what the new value is, and I said, yeah, it's accurate. And so then there's a long silence on the phone for a while, but my taxes, and I said, no, that doesn't necessarily mean, I'm not saying it's not going to, but, so there are many things to learn with this. But one thing that I want to bring up that I think is equally important, as you know, when the tax bill goes out in December, there are many different jurisdictions on there, okay? So we have the school district, we have the city, we have the county, and I think the
Tech College.
Technical college, right, okay. So, I think a lot of people, when they get that bill, here's the city's tax bill, and they don't understand that the city's portion is in there, but it's not totally the bill. We do the valuations for the other jurisdictions to come up with their taxes. So can you educate us on, say, for the Oshkosh Area School District, how they would come up with their mill rate to be included in the next tax bill?
Sure. Is it Jake back there? Do you mind pulling up the assessor's homepage, please?
And while he's getting that up, here's my fear. It's my understanding that the school district's going to be coming up with another referendum somewhere in the neighborhood of $175 million. And my fear is that they're going to do that, or there's going to be a referendum. If that passes, then it's going to be very easy to say, well, the city raised your taxes. And so, while that was not necessarily true, we can be the scapegoat for items like that. Am I correct in that?
So I completely appreciate you being an ally, first of all, and helping to advocate for what is a hard truth to share with property owners right now. With your background in real estate, we really appreciate you. In terms of the overall combined tax rate, you are correct, it is quite complex. So we do have the homepage pulled up here. Is there a way to scroll down a little, please? Right on our homepage, we have a graphic featured. If it's possible to, I believe if you click it, it'll expand the dollar picture. So if you could zoom in, please, to the top section, including the dollar and the green box at the top. Perfect, thank you so much. So because we realize that this is a big topic of concern for everyone, just helping explain the background on it, we ended up adding it into the homepage of our website, and we also have it available at the open book process in the hallway table and in room 206. We have 2 copies of all materials, so everybody can view all of the ward books, the roll assessment roll by street and this. To answer your question, we do our best to educate property owners on the combined tax rate, with the city of Oshkosh and Oshkosh schools being about even contributors. Technically speaking, I believe the school district overtook us by 1%. Winnebago County, and obviously of lesser concern, the Tech College at a minor 3%. In terms of your concern with referendums, we do our best to share that information as well. For the brochure that went out to property tax, to all property tax bills in December 2023, our brochure actually mentioned that as well.
Okay, so then the school district at some point in time, with the new reevaluation, they will come up with their own mill rates then, correct? To generate the dollars that they need?
Correct, yes. And I actually, we have the combined tax rate card, and it has the different level of mill rate that each entity contributes. So the city of Oshkosh, we've, as I explained earlier today, we do our best to explain to property owners that this revaluation for the city's portion of the mill rate should drop.
Right, okay.
But we can't speak to the other entities.
So I don't know if you know, or maybe the city manager, is there a relief valve, so to speak, for the taxpayers? Do they have levy limits where they can only levy so much? I mean, they can only raise the taxes to a certain amount without going to referendum, and I think they do, but now with these $175 million referendums, does that throw kind of a monkey wrench into the works? And I want to be real clear here. I'm really fearing that some of our friends in other jurisdictions are going to be doing some things to generate a heck of a lot of money and then point the finger at us.
The difference is that the other taxing jurisdictions, because they have multiple municipal jurisdictions in their area, you know, the Oshkosh Area School District, we're the largest, but you've got Town of Algoma, et cetera. Similarly, Winnebago County has every municipality, and the Voc Tech District is even bigger. They use what's called equalized value.
Yeah.
So it's an estimate of what the fair market value is. So their numbers, their equalized value isn't going to change drastically. So it really comes back to what Councilmember Flom said, what their levy is going to be. And I shouldn't speak for the school district, nor will I, but I know that their debt management plan is based on trying to, when things are about to retire, that's when they look at referenda. And I believe that's what the case is doing that. So I know you got a little sparkle in your eye.
Well, yeah, I think that's why they retired a lot of the debt that they had early, which caused them to have to tax a heck of a lot more than they said they were going to. Now that that's done, now they can go out for more money. That's the game that they're playing.
I'll let them.
You may be right, but that's a
Mr. Ninehouse
conversation
and
for them, yes.
Dr. Davis,
Yeah,
I'll
well,
let
this
them
comes
do
on
that.
the tax bill, so.
Yeah, yeah, but unfortunately, because we're the ones who send out as we, you know, at the holidays of all times, and it's coming from the city of Oshkosh, so it makes it look like it's all on us. And we know it's about 40%, as Jody pointed out.
Good job, Jody. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and I was going to say something, but I forgot. Hopefully, my husband knows I'm still alive.
Hanging in there. Thanks, Jody.
Thank you, Jody. Mark, anything more you want to share on the reval?
No, I
Okay.
think we've covered it. Thank you. Appreciate everything that everybody has done. It's a tough process, and we know we can do better.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Future workshops, Oshkosh Fire Department Community Risk Assessment, May 28th, 5 PM. That's before a council meeting, if my calendar's correct?
Yeah, I think Chief Stanley said he can get it done easily within 45 minutes.
Good. Looks like he's provided information in advance, so that way we have an
Yeah.
opportunity to adjust that, ask questions. Also, council members reach out in advance, allows him and his staff to have an educated answer for your questions that evening as well. And then to be determined undergrounding utilities in the city of Oshkosh as well.
Yes.
Council members, announcements and statements. Any announcements or statements from council members? Excellent. City manager, the rest is yours.
Well, if the council doesn't have much to say, I'm not going to say much either. There's several cooperative purchases and professional services agreements. Happy to answer any question. I will point out number 44, though, Oshkosh Avenue and Sawyer Street. That's a result of TIF 35. It's doing very well, and I think, we are going to be able to start that intersection analysis with cash that's already in the TIF. So really happy that the TIF's doing well, that we can do that work. And then you've got a couple other ones, the signage agreement, the Riverwalk signage agreement, real excited about that too. And I have the outstanding issues on the agenda, and happy to answer any questions you might have about any of the items under my reports. Or not.
I see none. With that, I think Deputy Mayor has a motion.
Well, this is going to make me some friends. I move to convene into closed session pursuant to Section 19.85(1)(e) of the Wisconsin State Statutes, where competitive bargaining reasons require closed session to discuss bargaining options, strategy, parameters, and terms related to potential assignment and amendment of the city's development agreement with Fox Valley Pro Basketball, Inc. to prospective purchasers of property located at 1212 South Main Street in the city of Oshkosh.
Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, if you'll take the roll on the motion to go into closed session.
Bulow?
Aye.
Stevenson?
Aye.
Nichols?
Aye.
Larson?
Aye.
Esslinger?
Aye.
Flum?
Aye.
Muglebauer?
Aye.
Carried 7.
Take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Adjourned, 9:50.